Hello, everyone.
How about that, Brett? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you now.
And we can see you even.
Oh, wow.
Did you read it? Yes.
I was kind of looking.
I looked through it, but I didn't.
You know,
I wanted to go through it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I read through all of this, and in all of it, there was like zeros for people who were coming in to apply for money, apply for funds. And I thought, God, that's
Okay.
ridiculous. And then we got this money that we went to.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, this is a big.
We barely have a quorum at this point.
Everybody was going to be here, so I'm going to just take them a few moments to get connected.
Is Austin coming?
He is going to be 20 minutes late.
Okay.
I told him we need to start with that. If he was cool.
Okay.
Maybe you'll bring the baby.
Very good. Right over there in the corner, sir.
For audience? I think I'm talking about Grant. Right?
Oh,
What's
yeah.
happening today. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
You're in good company in those
Okay,
cases.
okay, hi.
Hello, Counselor. We're up and running. I was shutting your thing down and start over. Sure, I got Brent. Okay, and call me back if it doesn't work, and I'll figure it out.
Some people in here, with this one here.
And you might want to watch. Ian said that he's going to be doing interviews
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much did you get for that?
It's been no one told.
Oh, God.
Like a year.
6 years since I don't think it's no longer.
Well, Harrison is again trying to connect, so make sure somebody. A few minutes.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Diane. How are
Nice
you?
to see you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
We have the same color top on.
Did we have a phone call before this? Will we plan that?
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's for stops. After that is Counselor Smith.
It is.
All right. So it looks like we've got Counselor Smith, Counselor Brent, RJ Marks.
Waiting for Mr. Halpern then?
Yes.
Gee, we could almost have a cocktail hour.
Oh,
We did for the rest of it.
we have rules against that. Yes, we do.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah, Captain Water. It's Oregon rain. Well, it will be.
Need a refill.
Yeah.
I'm just working on Mr. Halpern here.
Well, shall we go ahead and let him join in?
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Mr. Halpern.
hello, Eric.
Hi, Brent. I'm sorry for being late. I hit the button for the planning commission meeting instead of the budget commission meeting. My apologies.
All right, welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
Welcome, visitors. I'm going to go ahead and call the budget meeting to order. Is there a declaration of any conflict of interest by anyone on the committee?
Yes, I have a conflict of interest because I'm on the airport committee in Seaside and have been on it over probably 10 years now. So, and they're asking for money, $500 or so, yeah.
Okay, and I have a conflict of interest because I am on the board of the South County Community Food Bank, and they are asking for money today.
Okay. And so you all will just abstain from a vote on those?
Yes, on those matters, yes.
Yeah, I will abstain also. From the airport one. Yeah.
Any other declaration of conflict of interest? Okay, we need a nomination for chairperson for the budget committee.
This is the person who'd like to run through the agenda and work with the meeting.
So I would like to nominate Councillor Warren to run the meeting if he has an agenda in front of him. Do you, Brent?
Mute.
You're muted, Brent.
You're muted. This is the mute sign.
That's much better. It's a much more efficient way to run a meeting, though. Sure, I have a budget or a agenda and I can run through it. If there's nobody else who's just dying to do it, I would gladly hand it over.
I second the motion.
I was afraid you'd say that, Carrie.
Okay, we have a nomination, we have it seconded. All those in favor say aye to Brent being the chair. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. We've got a majority that says yes, so take it from here, Councillor Warren.
Okay. Call for nominations and elect a secretary recorder.
I nominate Justine Hill to be the secretary recorder for the budget committee.
Second,
Moved and seconded.
I have a question. Is it necessary to have her as the recorder, secretary recorder, if she is the budget officer presenting the budget? That's a kind of like giving her double duty and talking and writing at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm kind of covering for that. So in lieu of me not being the budget officer this year, I'd be happy to be the secretary and we'll work it out together. If
It's good.
somebody wants to nominate me for that, unless somebody wants to take it on, I'd be happy with that as well.
So you'd like to be nominated secretary, Chad?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Chad Sweet as secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, and the original motion and second is withdrawn. And all in favor of Chad being the secretary recorder, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Then Chad, you are the recording secretary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, the open public hearing of the Gerhart budget state revenue sharing portion is open. And we have a list of the organizations applying for funds. So we just go through them in order.
I'd like to know, Mr. Chairman, what the budget is in the amount of what we're giving away, because on my sheet, I don't have it.
There was an amount in the budget document.
The budget document, I'm sorry, I thought it would be on the other packet.
Yeah, no, I believe it was in the budget document. Justine, you want to help us out and point us in the right direction?
Yeah, there is a section in the expenditures on state revenue share, and then Chad is going to put up a document, so as later on when they're awarded, we will fill this in.
Okay.
It's on page 24.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the spreadsheet on the screen.
So,
And
yeah, everybody that submitted an application, where the arrow is, that column is ones that actually submitted a request, and that is the amount they requested.
Okay, and the 35,300 is the total that we're trying to, the target we're hitting?
Correct, that would be what your heart staff is recommending.
Okay.
Counselor Warren, can I just interrupt to let you know we have 3 guests here that are here to talk on their individual organization.
Okay,
We have George Marina from the St. Vincent's de Paul, Darren Gooch from the Food Bank, and Sunset Parks and Recreation, and Kasai Nye from North Coast Land Conservancy, Coast Walk.
okay, why don't we hit those
I can't.
Yes. first then to give a presentation of their organization?
So the first one would be George Marina from St. Vincent's de Paul.
To stand here, is that okay?
Okay, yeah, George, would you take it away and tell us about your organization and why you need money?
Yeah, well, we run the St. Vincent de Paul Food Pantry here in Deer Heart at the North Coast Plaza. We've been there about 18 years. We don't have any paid staff, everybody volunteers. So all the money that we raise goes for the food. We do a little financial aid, mainly food. So the money would do that. We spend about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And normally we raise somewhere around 50,000. We have about 120 families a month. We average about 350 people. Any questions?
No,
No questions?
I have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
Under where it says expense and you say client rent subsidy, is that what you pay for rent?
Fine. No, our rent would be in there separately.
So what is a client rent?
That would be financial aid where we have people come in once a month and we help them with their, well, partial rent. We can't handle the full rent, but utilities and then some miscellaneous stuff if they need it.
So, and then, but you have to pay dues to St. Vincent's de Paul to have a food bank?
We do, we pay Portland. Portland is the mothership.
Right.
So we pay them, and then the national has started taking some money in the last few years.
Right, thank you.
That's due.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next organization up is,
It's Darren Gooch from the Food Bank, and are you doing also the one for the scholarships for STRD?
Well, great. Want to start by saying thank you for having me again this year. So it's actually really neat to be in person. So we've done a couple of years of Zoom, and I can tell you I've had enough Zoom to last me a lifetime. So, so thank you for allowing me to be here. I want to talk a little bit about the South County Community Food Bank. Like George and St. Vincent de Paul, we are a food pantry. We're part of the regional food bank network. What they call a partner agency. We serve everyone south of Warrenton, some of the unincorporated areas of Warrenton, all the way down to Cannon Beach. So there's tends to be a lot of crossover between food pantries. We tend to be open alternate days from our other partner agencies, so we can kind of ensure that way that a lot of our area residents have an opportunity to get a food box no matter what day of the week it is. So yeah, one thing that is kind of striking that when I look at our numbers, we're still down a little bit right after COVID started. Folks kind of were getting a little bit more food stamp money. So numbers themselves have been down, but we have actually been able to that way give more food to those other individuals that do come into the pantry that really need it. What we tend to see are folks coming into us that aren't able to access some of those other benefits. So food stamps, TANF, and things of that sort. So our clientele tend to be those really who are more in need or not getting those additional benefits. And so normally we give away a 3 to 5 day supply of emergency food. Right now we're able to give away more like 7 to 10 days to those folks that come in. So some of the numbers that I kind of ran through were pretty striking to me. We have a lot of really generous agencies, local food outlets that help us out. We do have one employee in our food pantry. She's absolutely a fantastic individual, and she has sort of crafted some really great relationships with some of the newer businesses that come in. So like Grocery Outlet, Natural Grocers, Hamilton's Market in Seaside. Costco, we've actually had a great relationship with for a very long time. 45,807 pounds of food donated in 2021 from Costco. Our local Safeway, 16,010 pounds. Grocery Outlet, again, one of our newer partnerships, 23,609 pounds of food. So all total for 2021, we had 162,723 pounds of food donated. So, and really, my hat's off to Jenny, our one employee. She spends a lot of time driving up and picking up these donations, and really it's worth it. That means compared to the number of folks that came in this last year, everybody that walked out of our pantry walked out with about 43.28 pounds of food. So, so those numbers are really encouraging, and it's through the generous donations from folks like yourselves, a lot of our donors from the community, things like that. We're able to do the great work that we continue to do. So, any questions?
I have a question
Yeah.
for you. Do the Castor lines, are they involved?
Yeah, they're two of our board members, and when they're not in Arizona, they are at the pantry every Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes on Mondays, helping with the food stuff
Okay,
as well.
that's good.
So,
Because they're Gerhardt, and it's
Yeah.
nice to have, Gerhardt people helping out. So,
yeah, we have to wait Rita too. She's yeah. So, any other questions I can answer for you?
Can't get more Gerhardt than that.
Not really. So, good. Well, thank you. And I'll switch gears a little bit and talk to you a little bit about our Sunset Park and Recreation Foundation. We have had a scholarship program for many, many years now. And we serve pretty much the entire county as far as scholarships go. Scholarships we offer to folks that are below the USDA guidelines for income. A lot of folks come to us for help accessing programs like youth programs. About 60% of the folks that take advantage of our scholarship program are part of our youth programs. Right now, childcare is kind of a big topic with a lot of local daycares and things like that closing. Parents are having a much harder time accessing that. I was a young parent. My wife and I had 3 children. Both of us were trying to go to school. We had to pay $300 a month for each one of our children in daycare. That was about a third of our income at the time, and that was a real struggle. So I could feel really, really close to these folks and the struggles that they're going through accessing childcare. About another 30% of our scholarship recipients are pool users. Most of them are seniors that live on a fixed income, have a difficult time affording a monthly pass out of their pockets. So we were able to offer some scholarships to those folks to be able to access those services, to be able to get in a warm water pool, therapy pool with their arthritis. So we're very pleased to be able to offer that service to those folks as well. The remaining 10% are folks that take part in our recreation programs. And pottery classes is one of those. Again, a lot of seniors that take part in those that live on a fixed income. So yeah, absolutely fantastic program. I work very closely with the scholarship recipients. Our scholarship recipients are required to volunteer 4 hours every quarter. So we find them coming out to help with our special events and things of that sort. I do have one scholarship recipient that is helping out our maintenance department right now. He's putting in about, he said he wants to do his entire year all at one time. So he's putting in about 12 hours of work, 16 hours of work to help out with some maintenance things kind of in his field. So yeah. Any questions on our scholarship program that I can answer? Okay. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening. Thank you, Brent.
Hey, Darren, we may have asked this in previous years, but is it possible to have a special Gerhardt Scholarship Fund segregated from other scholarship funds in your program?
It's definitely a possibility. It's something I would have to talk to our board about, but I'd certainly be willing to do that. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for considering that. That might be something for us to consider. Let's see, next guest.
This is Cassia Nye from North Coast Land Conservancy.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, and you got it right, it's Cassia.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty new to North Coast Land Conservancy, so I'm gonna try to answer some of your questions and maybe I'll learn a bit too. Are you all familiar with that organization? Yeah, you know what it means to conserve land, because I didn't in December. There's a lot of reasons that land can be conserved. One of the biggest you hear a lot about lately is climate change. So conservation of land is an answer to that. Beautification, also another reason. A lot of visitors come to the coast because it is lovely, and especially with the spring weather like we're having today. A lot of them appreciate that. Healthy ecosystems is another reason. NCLC, our vision is for people, plants, and wildlife to thrive. It's pretty great. We like those reciprocal relationships. So I'm here representing NCLC to request a grant for $2,000, and that is for our Coast Walk Oregon event. Anyone familiar with it? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I recently learned about it. It's a 3-day hike that covers 30 miles a day along the Oregon Coast Trail. And the path or the trail is a different 30-mile section each year. So NCLC's service area spans from the Columbia River all the way down to Siletz Bay. So this year, we are trekking from Warrenton down to Cannon Beach, but it's not in order, and we're saving the best for last and ending the hike in Gerhardt.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so of course, all funds raised come back to land conservation. much of which is concentrated in this area, Gearhart specifically. And it's a big event, and it's very beloved. It started in 2016 with about 50 participants. Again, because it cycles, the last time it was in this northernmost section was 2017. And we had 62 participants. 80% of them traveled more than 50 miles to participate, which means they're staying locally in hotels or private residences or Airbnbs. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that in your part. It's a little unclear. But they are staying locally, which means they're eating locally. The hike is just the morning of those 3 days. So they are shopping, they are touring, they are doing all the things that we love the visitors to do here for those 3 days. And in fact, 63% of those participants rented lodging is what they reported in 2017. Because the event has been so popular, we have already sold out this year's event at 90 participants, and there is a wait list. So you're too late. You're too late if you didn't sign up and you wanted to. A lot of staff time goes into planning this event. It's about 650 hours. And there's approximately $15,000 of expenses. And again, all of the money that we get will come back to conserve and care for the land that we love here locally. I think that's mostly all I had. Questions?
I always.
Oh, great.
So the money that you're asking for, you said the whole thing will cost you 15,000.
Yeah.
So what is that money spent on?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we are using that for the production of the event. So for example, there's 90 participants. Is there a spot in Gearhart for 90 people to park? Oh, yeah. So we're meeting at Circle Creek Conservation Center in Seaside, and we're busing them to the trailhead every morning and then picking them up at the end of the hike and busing them back. But that bus, I mean, I cannot believe the price of gas. Holy cow. The bus, we use First Student Shuttle, and it is $3,500 to have buses for 3 days. We also give participants quite a lot of food and water along the trail, which is another expense. There's have a Sister Coast Walk website, and that is an expense. There's a lot of things there.
How much does it cost for a participant to join?
Yeah, it's $379. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
Anybody else have a question?
All right, thank you. You guys have, it's a big job. I saw that list up there, and I'm familiar with quite a number of the organizations, and they're all so good. So, good luck.
You know what, I also cannot, I'm very active with the NCLC, very active, so for that reason I need to just help them out. I can't, as much as I would love to request that you guys get like, you know, a massive amount, everybody needs it, but no, it's, I'm not speaking on it.
So
I am recusing myself, yes.
I guess I better do that too.
Yeah, and Sharon, I think you need to too, because you're very active with NCLC and yeah.
That would be the same for me, I'm afraid. I'm also an active participant. I've actually participated in 4 of the coast walks myself, and I'm helping as a trail guide on this one. So I'll have to claim a conflict of interest myself.
Okay,
But I'll encourage everybody to support. If that's a conflict to say that.
okay, so we have several recusals on this one, and I guess that's all of the in-person guests that we have. Are there any other guests calling in remotely?
No, sir.
Okay. So for the organizations that are not represented, do we want to go through the packet and review the narratives, or should we just go straight to the spreadsheet and go down the list? What's the pleasure of the budget committee?
May I suggest that we start working our way through the list and if we need to refer back to the packet, because I feel like everybody probably had a chance to look through that a little bit.
Yes, that was one of my 2 suggestions. So let's go through the list. Chad, could you, or,
Yes, sir, working on that.
okay, there we go.
All right, so would you like me to go over the organization of this chart really quickly?
Sure.
It's pretty self-explanatory. We have what these 3 columns, of course, the organization, the folks that were awarded last year and the amounts. Then we have the requested amount for this year. And then the approval of the budget committee will be filled in as you go. We have a total here of 35,300 that the staff is suggesting as far as the amount to be distributed. And then we can go through this. Actually, after here we go, the public hearing. Okay, so this would be something that let's see, was our plan to close the public hearing and then go into the revenue share for this? I think is what we need to do. So Councilor Warren, I would suggest that make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay,
I move we close the public hearing.
and is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? There being none, all in favor of closing the public section, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the public session is now closed. So do we excuse the guests or do they stay put?
Up to them.
Yeah.
I have a question of order. Is it not something that we do during the budget process and we start going through the budget, and when we get to page 24, we give them a line item amount that we discuss and okay for the budget and continue on through the budget at that time? Is that not the way we do it?
Correct. It's part of the budget process, yes.
Okay. So, Councilor Warren, I think we need to receive the budget message and then we go to the budget and go through it line by line.
Okay.
And then when it gets to page 24, we decide what monies go where and we continue on from that point.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. I appreciate your guidance on that. So let's review the budget message. And Justine, do you want to
Yes, thank you.
handle that?
Yes, so ultimately, my objective would be to read the budget message and then directly transition into the budget document using my budget narrative that's been written. And then comments and questions and input would follow after we hear the whole budget from start to finish. So we can kind of get the whole picture, and then we can come back and either section by section, or I think we should probably do it chronologically so we don't lose sight and keep having to flip page back and forth. to go over, assign the revenue shares, talk about the general fund, talk about each fund, just kind of as we go through, but we have an overall picture after we get the budget message and go through the narrative. So that's how I would like to try it this year to see if that works for us. So I will get started with the budget message.
All right, thank you.
Yep, the city of Gerhart is required to provide a financial plan containing estimates of revenues, which are also known as resources, and expenditures for the next fiscal year. It allows the city an opportunity to evaluate objectives and priorities while remaining financially stable. Our budget justifies the imposition of property taxes and the distribution of the appropriations. Within the city, the departments work collaboratively to provide a safe environment for residents, businesses, and visitors, while also working to maintain financial strength and transparency. The city council plays an integral role in providing organizational goals and objectives that enhance our community. The budget being presented represents a stable, strong financial pathway to meeting our needs. Our city council is committed to supporting our local fire and police department by endorsing city staff to move forward with pursuing a general obligation bond to fund a new facility. Regardless of the council's desire to move forward with the facility, it is ultimately the taxpayer who will decide the outcome of the additional city financial obligation. However, because the council has made it a priority, appropriations have been allocated in the debt service fund, which is the payment of the bonds, and in the capital project funds, which gives the city the ability to accept revenues and pay out expenditures. If taxpayers do not support the proposed measure, there may be, if this council chooses, additional opportunities next year, November and May, to use the appropriations. According to the March 2022 Oregon Economic Forecast, the US economy grew last year at its fastest pace since the early 1980s. And although the inflationary boom persists, all of Oregon's primary revenue markers continue to outperform pre-pandemic expectations. This is positive news for the city revenue projections. Also favorable news for the city's revenue is our new certified population statistics. Per capita distributions for state streets, liquor revenues, marijuana tax, and cigarette tax are calculated based on certified population statistics from Portland State University's Center for Population Research. In 2021, Gerhart represented 1,545, and in 2022, it will be 1,872. The beginning fund balances for the general fund, water operating fund, and the Gerhart Road District will have a portion of the American Rescue Plan included in them. This is due to revenues received this fiscal year, but will not be spent by June 30th. Although the revenues have been adjusted to show the resources received, the expenditures still represent the total award amount of $362,935.78. This budget shows a newly created administrative assistant, a full-time equivalent position, which provides support to the building, municipal court, and planning departments. The FTE is broken down in there. 0.57 is building, 0.111 is municipal court, and 0.32 is planning. This position is funded through the general fund, with salary and benefits being proportionately separated in each of the relevant departments. There has been a transfer proposed in the water improvement construction fund of $4,000. This fund was originally established to account for the financial transactions in the construction of the water treatment facility. Because the facility is complete, it is recommended that these funds be transferred to the Water Reserve Fund. If it is approved, a resolution will be presented to the City Council. After the historical data reporting period is over, this fund would be deleted. There are also transfers in the budget to support the city's revenue funds, reserve funds, sorry. The City of Gerhart has taken a proactive approach of planning ahead and systematically saving for capital acquisitions, equipment, and other future contingencies. These transfers provide a degree of financial stability by reducing reliance on indebtedness to finance capital projects and equipment acquisitions. Transfers in the general fund are as follows: $15,000 to the police car reserve fund, $60,000 to the fire apparatus and equipment reserve fund, $30,000 to the hazardous mitigation fund, and $100,000 to the building reserve fund. Transfers in the water operating fund are $100,000 to the water reserve fund and $20,000 to the public works major equipment reserve fund. Planning today and saving incrementally for expected future events does not help mitigate the budgetary impacts of major non-recurring or unforeseen expenditures on the annual operating budget. However, it cannot be at the city's financial detriment. Transfers are only made when revenue targets are met. So if our revenues do not come in at a certain level, those transfers have been appropriated, but we do not have to necessarily make those transfers in order to keep our ending fund balances at a stable level. In the State Street Fund, allocations have been made for the 2022 Small City Allotment Program grant that was received by the Oregon Department of Transportation to fund a Gerhart sidewalk project. With the implementation of an employee handbook, city staff have been working on creating salary schedules. In the budget, a new section, supplementary salary information, provides information on salaries and fund distribution. The 2022-23 proposed budget represents a financial operation plan that strives to maintain or improve current service levels. It is a financial pathway to supporting our community because city council, city staff, and residents are passionate about preserving the integrity of Gerhart.
Great. Thank you, Justine. That's a great document.
Okay.
Okay, we move on to budget detail. Page 1.
Okay.
And-
First group together.
Yeah, let's go through it together.
How do you feel about just going all the way through it, or do you want to stop at each section and ask questions? What's the consensus?
I'd love to go through and not stop every section and ask questions.
Okay, we'll try that this year. I like that idea too. So we're gonna start on page 1, but I have a little narrative that I'm gonna read in the beginning, but I'm gonna leave some things out. The budget document is a comprehensive financial picture of our next operating year from July 1 to June 30. It is required by Oregon budget law, so we have specific things that we must follow. The format was a format that they encourage, and all cities must use some form of this layout. The accounting system is structured to maintain the integrity of the revenues or the resources, just another name, and the expenditures of each fund. So every fund must balance. So when you have a fund, you have to have the revenues, and then you have to have the expenditures to match it. The city of Gerhart is also a cash basis for accounting. That's the system that we use. It was endorsed and supported by our auditors, so we continue to use that method. The city of Gerhart's budget has the following fund categories. So within this budget, which also our auditors organize in this way, there is the general fund, which is the primary operating fund, and it is also the largest fund and has most of our subdivisions and departments broken down into it. There's the debt service fund, which is for general long-term debt obligation. It's both principal and interest in this, and this budget has both water and the new fire police facility, which is pending voters' approval. Enterprise funds, which can also be known as proprietary funds. And these funds are like business-like activities, so they want to see service fees, public utilities, they want things to cover the cost. So that this particular type of program, which we only have water, balances out with revenues coming in and expenditures going out. Special revenue funds, these funds account for specific revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for specific purposes. They could be imposed like our reserve funds, or they could be a specific grant or a specific thing that has been decided and put into the budget, and then it's classified as a special revenue fund. They're very restrictive, and they usually have specific reasons that you can spend the money out of those funds. Our reserve funds take resolutions by our council in order to spend them. Capital project funds. These funds account for financial resources used to acquire or construct major capital facilities and or acquire capital assets. So we do have some capital project funds in there. The 2022-2023 budget has been reformatted, so it looks a little bit different than last year. Please note that any important or significant changes will be presented during the budget meeting. However, requests for additional information or questions are welcome. And before I get into the actual budget, I do want to mention, I want to talk about payroll factors that affect a lot of different funds throughout the whole budget. It's in personal services. If I talk about them now, then I won't have to talk about them every single time as we go through there, but it will also give you an idea of, you know, what we're projecting and give you kind of some economic factors impacting one of our largest operating expenditures in the budget, which happens to be payroll associated. The budget has been prepared with the following payroll assumptions. The city of Gearhart is budgeting a 5.9% cost of living or a COLA salary increase with anniversary steps when they're applicable. Some of our staff aren't eligible, which is the estimated 2022 COLA by the Social Security Administration. Workers' compensation rates have been increased by a projected 5%. Retirement, the city of Gearhart participates in the public employees retirement system, so PERS, for a retirement plan for employees. There are 3 separate accounts that have different employer rates. There's the tier 1, tier 2, the OPSERT general, and the OPSERT police fire. Employees pay 6% pre-tax, so they pay part of it, and then the employer, the city of Gearhart, we pay for tier 1, tier 2, 20.52%, for OPSERT general, 12.91%, and for OPSERT police and fire, 17.27. These rates are figured on a biennium basis. So we are going into the second piece of the biennium, so the rates aren't actually changing for this next year. Insurance benefits, medical, dental, vision, life, accidental death and dismemberment, and long-term disability. They're through CIS, which is Countrywide Insurance Services. They were formed by the League of Oregon Cities and the Association of Oregon Counties to meet the risk management and employee benefits needs of Oregon cities, counties, and other eligible local governments. Insurance is provided to all full-time employees, and this budget includes a monthly employer contribution of up to $2,361.45 per employee. And rate increases were implemented as recommended for budgeting by CIS. Employment rates and workers' assessment benefit fund tax have been budgeted with no increases from current rates. The city is also aware of the new Oregon paid leave mandate that requires both an employee and an employer portion. It is for extended family medical leave reasons. And because we have so few employees, the employer at this point is not having to pay in There is a lot of discussions and public meetings going on because they haven't set all the rules for this yet, but we're not anticipating it to be a large impact on us this year. I think contributions start January 1. Let's go to page 1 and 2, resource general fund. So resources, line 1, the beginning fund balance, the cash on hand. The city is anticipating a strong ending fund balance. Key factors for this are due to revenues received this fiscal year from the American Rescue Plan, but will not be spent by June 30th. Local marijuana tax payments that were received from previous fiscal years due to an accounting distribution misunderstanding, and strong transient room tax collections. Resources, line 2, property tax was budgeted at 3% increase with a reduction for discounts and other uncollectible amounts. The city's permanent tax rate is 1.0053 per thousand of assessed value. Resources, line 4 and 5, building. New legislation is required for the city to track the building department differently. Revenues must be identifiable in the general fund resources so that they can be easily compared to the building expenditures. The state of Oregon wants to make sure that building is bringing in, I don't think they're classifying it as a business-like entity yet, fund, but they may get there. So the building department revenue has been also adjusted. Did I skip something? No. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about expenditures. Resources, line 16, grant restricted resources have been allocated so that the city does receive grants. They will have a placeholder in the budget. This will allow the city the ability to receive specific restricted grants that are not specifically already awarded. They would be classified as potential future grants. So we went through the entire budget. We looked at little small grants that were throughout the budget, ones that we were pretty sure, we weren't sure whether or not we were going to get them, but we rolled them up. And so now we have one revenue line restricted. So we have appropriated for the revenues, and then we can place them when we get them to where they need to go. And we'll talk about that when we get to non-departmental for the expenditure side of it. Resources, line 16, grant restricted resources have been allocated. Okay, I just said that. Resources, line 19, conflagration mobilization allocations have been increased, and we'll talk about that in the expenditure line a little bit more later. Resources, line 31, marijuana tax has been increased to reflect the city receiving the approved voter imposed local tax on sales and the opening of a new store. Resources, line 33, transient room tax has been increased because visitors just keep coming. They love it here. So we're not sure whether that's a COVID side effect or whether that's a long-term thing, but it has had a very, very significant impact on our transient room tax. Overall general fund revenues are budgeted at an increase of 12.8%. So let's move to page 3 and 4. Administrative departments. So we're going to the expenditures of the general fund. We just talked about the revenues. This fund is supportive of all departments within the general fund. Collaborative costs that are not easily identified by the departments, so utilities, office equipment, insurance, and general office supplies are charged to this category. If they are significant, we try to break them down, but we don't buy a box of pens and then divide them out amongst 4 people. We have pens available, but then the police department has some office supplies that are specific to them, and we do charge them to them if they need specific things. But a lot of what we have in this administrative budget serves a lot of different departments. Personnel services expenditures, line 13 has been added for auditors adjustments, which are related to historical distribution of associated payroll tax that had been incorrectly charged to a payroll expense account instead of to the individual departments. Materials and services, expenditure line 17, postages have been added to more accurately track this expenditure. Materials and services expenditure line 22, The audit has been increased to reflect the need for mandatory auditor obligations. Materials and services expenditures, line 24. Insurance has been adjusted. Property and auto insurance will be distributed more proportionately. The line item includes all the liability responsibilities for all departments except water. So this includes property liability, this includes cyber insurance, this includes automotive insurance. All of the things are in this particular line item. Material and services expenditures, line 26, City Hall contract labor has been increased to support professional contract services, things like towing, that motorhomes seem to be abandoned more and more. Materials and services expenditures, line 32, technology and software has been added as per the recommendation of the city's auditors to look at implementing a more comprehensive government accounting financial system. We currently use QuickBooks, which is really not designed for a municipality to use to the extent that we need. It works, it's very affordable, but it really doesn't provide the type of comprehensive software transactions that we really need. And it can also be more integrated. So this financial software could potentially integrate into a water software. It could integrate into court, municipal court. And so we could possibly look at taking a lot of the everyday entries that we have to do and collaborating and putting it into one. It is expensive. Software costs a lot. So we are anticipating that. Materials and services expenditure, line 35. Dues and fees have been increased based on historical data. So page 5, building department. Personnel services expenditure, line 3 to 10. Salary and benefits have a newly created administrative assistant position, 0.57 full-time equivalency. This is, as I mentioned earlier, part of so there's one person doing this, but her 0.57 salary is represented here. And then the rest of her is divided out in the departments in which she's working. Materials and services expenditure, line 15, the modular rental allocation has been eliminated because it's no longer needed due to the building department moving into City Hall. We used to have people. We used to have a building person, and then we used to have a city planning and court. And so they couldn't really easily work in the same office. So now that the one person is doing it, we're able to move them into City Hall, and we no longer need the modular. So we're getting rid of it. They should be taking it any day. Materials and services expenditure, line 16, vehicle maintenance has been eliminated because allocations are not needed. Material and services expenditure, line 18, state surcharge, also related to line 20, building inspector, and line 21, plumbing inspector. They're proportionately related to these, so we pay 12% of every mechanical, building, and plumbing permit that comes out of this office. We pay 12% to the state. So when we decrease the number of permits, we decrease the amount of surcharge. Also, we decrease the amount of revenue that we put in, which we had done earlier. The city is anticipating a decrease in permits due to decreased property inventory and increased cost of construction materials. Material and services expenditure, line 22, short-term rental inspections have been added to more accurately account for this type of activity. It was previously being put in the building inspector expenditures, and our auditors felt like it should be something that wasn't really tied to that normal position, that it should be brought out so that we could see how much is being spent on the STRs. And it is a mandatory requirement to have the inspection, so we've moved that down there. Page 6 and 7, the police department. Personal services expenditures, line 4, salary overtime pay has been increased due to the anticipated need for additional support for the newly hired police officer. It's my understanding that depending upon who's hired, which likely may not be a licensed police officer, they may take up to a year to be able to be on their own. So they may have to have some additional support as they transition into a full-time regular police officer with all the mandatory requirements that they have to have, which means that our other police officers will have to pick up that support for them. Personal services expenditures, line 5, the salary relief police has been allocated an appropriation placeholder for the ability to hire part-time need-based staff. There are no specific needs that we anticipate. However, the police chief has requested that this line item remain in the budget for unforeseen circumstances that may require additional support. And then materials and services expenditures, line 17 through 30. He's gone through and really looked at every one of those line items and tried to look at historical and what they're using for. And so he's kind of tweaked each little one. Not every line, but he's gone through and looked at them and made some adjustments, so we made those adjustments. Page 8 and 9, fire department. Personnel services expenditures, line 6, salary firefighters incentive plan has been eliminated because allocations are no longer needed. This program was a collaborative program with the Gearhart Rural Fire Department to provide volunteers with a length of service stipend. Because the Gearhart Rural Fire Department had limited funds, the city of Gearhart provided some financial assistance to the program. This allocation is no longer necessary. Personnel services expenditure, line 7, conflagration and mobilization labor has an increase in allocations. This expenditure is supported by general fund resources, but as a reimbursement expenditure. This means that organizations that need assistance must agree to reimburse the full expenditure and the full cost of personnel and equipment before the city will let them go. The city budget needs to allocate these expenditures so that if our firefighters assist, there are appropriations and a tracking method to document costs. This includes our volunteers. So if our volunteers, if there's a call that comes out and our volunteers choose to go to wildfires down in Southern Oregon, traditionally, they're not on our payroll. Traditionally, we don't pay them. However, there is a full program with the state for this conflags where they can dispatch them out and the state reimburses us certain fees based on hourly wages. They then become our temporary employee. So they have an I-9 and a W-4 and are covered by workers' comp while they go down and they help with the fires. And then we write a check, the city of Gearhart, and we are reimbursed 100% of that. We have, unfortunately, we have no idea fire-wise how many that's going to happen. Last year, I think it was almost 200,000. This year was 104,000. So we don't know how much. So we want to appropriate so that if our people need to go out to help other communities, it can be in Oregon or out of state too. So it can be either one. Materials and services expenditures, line 33. This is also a reimbursement, and they pay us to use our equipment, but we also then can turn around and purchase equipment with using this money. Our city administrator has allowed them, so if they need to purchase things, it comes out of this line item, and it is also supported by that revenue line in the revenues. Capital outlay expenditures, line 37, grant restricted has been eliminated. Restricted grants have been moved to the non-departmental section because specific grants haven't been awarded. Page 10 is our non-departmental. Materials and services expenditures, line 4 is the grant restricted has been added to allow for allocations for grants that may be applied for after the budget has been prepared. We added the revenues, we're adding the expenditures. What would happen is if we get a specific grant, we have allocated, so we don't need to have a budget message, but we would then do a resolution to transfer $8,000 to the fire department for a fire grant. And so we would have the ability to do that because it's all within the general fund and it's already been appropriated. So we kind of just lump those up because we never know what grants those are going to be. Other requirements, expenditures, line 10, grant, low moderate income support has been created. This appropriation is an objective of the city council to be able to explore the options of providing Deer low moderate income families some form of support. Although there are potential ideas for this type of program, there has been nothing officially approved by the city council. These are allocations to allow for future opportunities. We did have a pretty large surplus this last year in marijuana tax. And Councilor Warren was really wanting to be able to maybe turn that money around and in some way support our local low-income families. It hasn't been decided and it could be any number of things. So we have allowed an allocation, but it would definitely have to be something that the council approves and goes through with parameters before any funds are spent out of there. Other requirements, expenditures, line 11, grant COVID business relief was a grant program that was offered during the pandemic and it's no longer funded. So there's no funds there. Page 11, municipal court, materials and services, expenditures, line 14, telephones have been eliminated. This department uses the telephone services that are paid through the administrative department. Materials and materials and services expenditures, line 21, office machine maintenance has also been eliminated. This department uses our copy machine, which is paid through the administrative department. And materials and services expenditures, line 22, technology software has been added with allocations. They definitely are looking at trying to improve our municipal court software. So they would like to hopefully integrate with us so that the business office and possibly water and maybe SDR can all be one partner. Page 12, the planning department, personnel services, expenditures, line 3, overtime has been created with allocations. With this position merging into now what is a full-time position, extra time will be needed to cover hours that extend beyond the normal working hours, mainly the planning commission meetings. She works an 8-hour day. And so that means that nighttime meetings will extend into extra time. So we have put an allocation there. Material and services, expenditures, line 13, postage have been created to more accurately track this expense. They have to send out a lot of legal notices that are easy to track. It's not just people putting things, randomly in our postage box to go out. They will send out 30 different specific notes that we can track for postage. So we want to start doing that. Materials and services, line 20, grant local wetlands inventory grant has been eliminated. Currently, this grant has not been awarded to the city and it would also fall under that restricted. If we did get it, we could, move it back into there. Page 13, park department. There really was no significant changes to this budget. Page 14 and 15 is just a summation of the general fund. So it takes all of the expenditures, lumps them into category, and then just kind of gives you a brief overview of all of them summed up together. So you can just kind of see what the total picture of expenditures, what the general fund looks like. Page 16, debt service fund. Resources, line 1, the beginning fund balance. Cash on hand is anticipated to be higher than in preceding years to accommodate for anticipated debt service payments needed in September 2022, before the city's debt service property tax payments started coming in. as well as savings due to the 2011, 2021 refinance project. We refinanced, but we did not implement any change in our refinancing when we put the budget together last year, because we had some issues we had to resolve with getting some audits cleaned up and doing some other things. So it actually didn't hit the refinance until July, and we have to certify our taxes in June. So we will see a cost savings of that because we implemented the tax rate, so that was a good thing. Resources line 2 property tax current shows an increase in the property tax line item to represent the increase for a taxpayer approved general obligation bond payment for the fire police relocation project. Expenditures line 13, 2011 water geo bond principal, and line 19, 2011 water bond interest have been eliminated because they were refinanced, and so we have to move them down into 2021 water refinance in both principal and interest. So we didn't lose a payment, we just moved it down to a different line and reduced it. Expenditure line 15, fire police relocation bond principal, and line 21 is the bond interest. It's been created with appropriations based on a draft anticipated financial scenario from our financial advisors, D.A. Davidson. The fire police bond expenditures are added in order to establish appropriations for the objective of paying the debt service for constructing a new fire police station. These expenditures are contingent on a measure being passed by taxpayers and certified by the elections office. Expenditures line 24, tax unappropriated ending fund balance. This represents the amount needed to make debt service payments in September of 2023 before the city receives its debt service tax payments in November. So tax payments go out in, tax statements go out in October, and we do not end up getting revenue until mid-November, well, starting in November, and then into December, people start paying their property tax. But we still have obligations the month of July, August, and September to pay. So we have to make sure that we have enough money in order to make those payments. So if you look at the schedules, what you have to do on page 17 and 18, you have to look in next year, 2023-24, at any payment before 11, and those need to be in our ending fund balance so that we have enough money to cover. So that's that rationale. Page, and then the following pages are the breakdown of our remaining debt service for our 2 obligation bonds. And then the third one is a projected one because we need to project something out. If that bond passes, we will be implementing taxes, and no matter what scenario we pick, we will have debt service payments to pay. And so we want to make sure that we have some form of appropriation in there. So that's why we put that in there. Page 19, Water Improvement Construction Fund. This is the one I had mentioned earlier. This is from our old water bonds that is now complete. There's just been a little bit of money dangling out there year after year after year. And I would propose that we move these into the Water Reserve Fund. They do need to stay within the water fund because they were designed and they were voted on to support the water program. So we should be placing them into a water account somewhere, and it makes sense to put it into the Water Reserve account. If this gets approved, we will do a resolution. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but we can get rid of this account if we move it out of there. Page 20, 21, and 22, the Water Operating Fund. This is the general primary operating account that all of our water services go through. It offers water to the public. It is undergoing a water conservation program, so they evaluate whether or not our program is financially and make recommendations to make it better. It may also undergo a rate feasibility study, so you'll hear more about that if that ends up coming along. Resources line 7, the Grant American Rescue Fund has been reduced. However, revenues received in 2021-22 have not been spent, so they'll be part of the beginning fund balance there. Personnel services expenditures, line 11, benefit health, life, and disability insurance has been adjusted to more accurately represent budgeted insurance allocations. Benefit amounts are being budgeted at the maximum annual benefit allowable per employee. Materials and services expenditure line 16, postage has been created with allocations to provide for more accurate accounting for this expense. Materials and services expenditure line 44, the Grant American Rescue Plan projects. It's been added, so we have a revenue and we still want to allocate so we can spend those expenses. Capital outlay line 48, office equipment has been reduced. Page 24 and 23 and 24, state revenue share fund 45. The ORS 221770 revenue sharing to cities requires a share of certain revenues from the state of Oregon to be appropriated among and distributed to the cities of Oregon for general purposes. So we do receive money. It is on a per capita basis, so that is helpful for us. Materials and services expenditures line 6 through 22, grants, local organizations. These lines have been restructured. During the budgeting process, the city has a state revenue share public hearing, which we heard today, so that local organizations have the opportunity to request funding for this fund. Anticipated grant allocations have been placed in line 6. And individual allocations are determined by the budget committee and approved by the city council. So what will happen is the city will make a recommendation of how much they think that would be appropriate to spend out. And then the budget committee, you can change that amount if you would like, as long as you have the revenues, but that you would then go ahead and go through and assign based on the applications that you received. Do you want to do that now or when we're done? When we're done?
I think when we're done.
Okay,
We're
good.
on a roll.
Yep, we're on a roll. Okay, so page 25 and 26, the State Street Fund. State Street funds are part of the Oregon State shared revenues and support the construction, reconstruction, preservation, maintenance, repair, and improvement of streets and roads. It is distributed to Oregon cities based on a per capita distribution. Revenue sources come from vehicle registration, title fees, driver's license fees, fuel tax, and weight mile tax. Resources line 3, state highway apportionment, that word, has been increased based on an increase in Gerhardt's per capita population statistics. Resources line 4, 2022 small city allocations program have been added to allow for a grant that was received by the Oregon Department of Transportation to fund a Gerhardt sidewalk project, which is a very specific project that we need to finish. We have a 2-year window, so we need to finish it up next year. Materials and services expenditures, line 14, materials and services, and line 15, contracted services have been increased due to the sidewalk grant. So we have the revenues and then we expend it out in the expenditures. Page 27, Water Resource Fund 71. This fund, under the authority of Chapter 280, financing of local public projects and improvements, city and county economic development by City Ordinance 767 that was passed on May 7th, 2003. Hereby establishes a financial reserve fund for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, repairing, extending, and improving the water system of the city of Gerhardt in whole or in part. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the water operating fund. And there is also a scheduled transfer from the water reconstruction fund that we talked about. Expenditures have been allocated, however, no specific project has been scheduled. I want to just clarify, because this did cause a little bit of confusion and it's totally understandable. So these reserve funds are like a savings account. So we save money in them so that when things happen, which tend to be very expensive, or we need things, which again can be very expensive, we don't necessarily have the general fund revenues or specific revenues to cover them. So we put them in this savings account. We pretty much have a good idea of the revenues because we know the ending fund balance, we know where the revenue sources are coming from, but expenditures, we don't know. So we appropriate 100% of the funds that we think that is going to be in that fund to be spent, even though we don't have a specific program that we're planning on spending them. That means when something happens and we need a new backhoe, we can come to the city council for a resolution and we can spend that money without having an entire budget committee meeting in order to do that. So that's why it doesn't necessarily mean that we're spending all the fund or we have the intent to spend it. It just means that we are given permission to move forward with doing a resolution and an easier way of purchasing or dealing with the issue. The page 28, Police Car Reserve Fund, this fund, again, same Oregon law that allows us to create the reserve funds, was by city ordinance 725 on May 7th, 1997. And it hereby establishes a financial reserve for the purpose of maintaining, repairing, and replacing police cars or police cars for the city. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the general fund. And allocations have been made for the purchase of a new police vehicle. City council has approved by a resolution a request to authorize this purchase, but they're taking like 6 to 12 months in order to get vehicles. So it's been a very slow process. So we have allocated. Page 29, fire apparatus and equipment reserve. This fund under the authority, again, same authority that allows us to create the reserve fund by city ordinance 768 on May 7th, 2003. Hereby establishes a financial reserve for the purpose of maintaining, repairing, and replacing fire apparatus for the city of Deer Heart. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the general fund. And expenditures have been allocated. Again, there are no specific projects scheduled for this. Page 30, hazardous mitigation fund. This fund was created by ordinance 880 on June 4th, 2014. And it hereby established a financial reserve for the purpose of pre-disaster mitigation used for hazardous mitigation planning and projects to protect life and property from future natural disasters. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the general fund, and a grant allocation has been added with coordinating expenditures. This is a grant that is regularly received by the city of Deer Heart, and grant expenditures will not be spent without the approval of the grant. So we can put the grant in there, but nothing can be spent off of that grant until we know we have it. It's just a placeholder until the revenue comes in. And again, expenditures have been allocated, however, no specific projects have been scheduled. Page 31, the Public Works Major Equipment Reserve Fund. This fund by city ordinance 757 was on May 2nd, 2002. Hereby establishes a financial reserve for the purpose of purchasing, maintaining, repairing, and hereby replacing major public works equipment. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the water operating fund, and there was nothing specifically scheduled in that fund. Page 32, building reserve fund. This fund, again, by city ordinance 806 on May 2nd, 2007, established a financial reserve fund for the purpose of purchasing, repairing, and replacing city buildings. The primary reserve revenue source is a general fund transfer, and expenditures have been allocated. However, no special projects have been scheduled. Capital outlay expenditures, line 13, the fire police relocation project allocations have been eliminated. That was put in this year to help with some preliminary work that needed to be done for the site work and the ballot measure. Page 33, fire police general obligation GO bond project. This fund has been added in order to establish appropriations for the objective of constructing a new fire police station. Again, the taxpayers will decide whether or not we can use this fund. However, we can put it in and approve it. And if the city council should choose to go in November or May, it would allow appropriations to start spending immediately, as long as revenue was coming in. But it is contingent upon taxpayers' approval, whether it's now, whether it's in November, or whether it's in May. Page 34, the Gerhart Road District Fund. So this fund, under the authority of Chapter 371, Road District and Road Assessment Plans, was created by an area resident vote, and the purpose of allowing the city of Gerhart to levy a property tax to fund maintenance and improve roads. The permanent tax rate on this is 0.0602 cents per thousand of assessed property value. You are all officially Gerhart operating budget committee members, as well as Gerhart Road District. It does require special legal notices, which are identical to our general operating plan, and we are able to incorporate it into the same document, but it does have to have its own legal notices, and it does have to have a budget committee, which can also be the budget committee that hears our initial one. So you are all also Gerhart Road District budget committee members. Resources, line 2, property tax has been budgeted at a 3% with a reduction for discounts and other uncollectibles. Line 6, there are grant American resource funds in here. We have received some of those funds and they haven't been spent, so there some of the revenues will already be in the beginning fund balance. Materials and services, line 15, audit, and line 16, supplies and materials have been created with allocations to provide for a more accurate accounting of these types of expenses. We do have to have a different auditing process. It also gets audited our regular audit, but we also have to submit to a different department in the state of Oregon, and it does cost some minimal fees, but we do want to make sure that we reflect those coming out of the right revenue source. We have the grant expenditures there, so we can spend it, and then we have capital outlay, general maintenance, repairs been assigned allocations, but again, nothing, no special projects have been scheduled. And then page 35 is our new page, which is a supplementary salary information. And this is a new section in our budget, and it was implemented with our employee handbook. So Chad and I have been working on developing salary schedules and the placement of those salary schedules. And then we are able to break it down so that you can see, anybody can see the distribution of those FTEs and where those employees are charged throughout the budget, and then our different positions and their steps across, because we have a 7-step salary schedule. There's also merit increases that are given. Our individual department heads make those recommendations, but the budget committee does need to see those and approve those, because those will impact the salary schedule. And that doesn't necessarily, like the public works labor licensing and certification, they would have to get those in order to receive the merit. So they may not get it if they don't pass or they don't move forward with it, so. And then the supplementary information is just information that's required that we put in there, just to keep it all tidy and nice, so that our document has all of our stuff legally in there, so we can refer to it easily. And that is the budget in detail, revenues and expenditures. And now, I think we should open it up. And do you want to go section by section with questions, or deal with the state revenue share?
Muted.
Well, our guest was saying how tired he was of being on Zoom. I've been on Zoom 2 years and I still haven't gotten the mute unmute button down. So anyhow, what's the pleasure? Revenue sharing or just go page by page and
Can we do the revenue sharing?
okay.
Get through that. That seems like it takes the most deliberation to me.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. Chad, could you put the spreadsheet back up, please? And there it is. And
Actually, there it is.
Chad's getting faster and faster.
I can't read it.
I'm working on it. Sorry about that.
Page 24. Page 24.
There it is.
So let's see.
If I could clarify, this doesn't match exactly what's on page 24, does it?
No.
Right, because this page 24 has last year's organization.
And just a question on that, so if we continue some of those grants that go across, that would be a reduction in line 6.
Correct. So in the next column over, the second, approved by the budget committee, you will have the amounts that you approve and it will reduce from that 35, correct?
Thank you.
So it looks like to me that we had 40,500 in requests. And if I'm reading this correctly, we have 35,300 to give out.
The city staff is recommending 3,500, but the actual fund does have 50,000 in it. Because we have allocated 12,000 for an ending fund balance to roll over just to help support the program so that we have some funds in there carrying forward. But you could spend and allocate up to 50,000 if you would like.
The total requested is 35,000.
I thought it
There.
was 40,500.
This is last year's budget. And then up there, the second column over. So the first column is what they were awarded last year, which isn't in the budget, because we only have a budgeted amount. The second column is what I put on their application. And that column in your budget, the second column over, then will be what you guys award them.
Okay. Okay, so we've got some prior year organizations that did not submit a request, and then we have some new requests that weren't in last time.
Yeah,
So,
so the lack of dollar amount, so Clatsop Behavioral Health, they did not submit anything.
right, gotcha. And I wanted to ask, did Sons of Beaches, it doesn't look like they're,
We never got one from them.
oh, okay. They told me that they were going to get one in for sure, but
those sites.
Yeah, I don't think they're a 501c3.
Yeah, they were working through some
Oh.
of those things, so.
Okay, I asked them if they were a 501c3 and they assured me they were. So that's why we need to trust but verify.
So if they come in later, after we go all through this and pass this, it's like the Sons of Beaches come in later and say, can you give us? No.
Not unless you allocate money in the mayor's ER grant.
Yeah,
And then she could allocate.
With the city council's approval.
Brent, may I ask a question? On this spreadsheet on line 28, South County Food Bank, there's an asterisk in column G after the name. Does that asterisk represent anything?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Who's the mayor's emergency grant? You know,
I don't know about that.
what is the
I
mayor's
think
emergency
last
grant?
year there was a certain amount of money that needed to be allocated. Everybody had gone over the applications and allocated what they thought was appropriate, and there was still money left from the 35. And so it was put in case there was an emergency, then you could have the ability to release those funds.
Were they released?
No,
Okay.
none have been spent.
and maybe the name of emergency grant is maybe a misnomer, maybe discretionary, mayor's discretionary grant would be more accurate.
So I do have a question about this. Has Gerhard ever given, I mean, the largest request on there obviously is the Helping Hands 10,000. Has Gerhard ever given that much to any one entity?
Not my recollection. No.
Yeah, that's significantly larger than my limited 4-year experience would be. So should we start with Helping Hands? And
Can I ask a general question, Brent?
sure.
Under the heading here, state revenue sharing, what exactly does that mean? What is state revenue sharing mean? Does it have
Yeah.
anything to where this money is coming from?
Yeah, that's where the money is coming from, the state, and it's allocated by population.
Okay, so this isn't even money that's collected. It's not from our general fund. It's not collected from the Gerhart taxpayers directly or anything like that. This is just money the state has given every municipality to disperse as grants as they see fit.
That's my understanding, yes. Justine and Chad, and
Yes, accurate.
that's accurate, okay.
Yeah, and so if I could clarify, what was the point that we had actually $12,000 more than 35 that we have first suggested to allocate? What's the additional 12 grand you made reference to?
It is on page 24, it's line 28. So we would like to try to improve the longevity of the grant, and we're state appropriations, they are strong right now, but if they start to waver or you have no funds, then you might not be able to grant as many awards each year. So we were just setting what we thought was a generous amount to distribute to our community and then save a little bit for next year that would roll over, but it could be spent.
So that was a little bit of a reserve fund in case we had reason to want to spend more. And how did we come up with the 35.3 to begin with? How did we come up with that number?
That was what was given last year.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
So given that the Helping Hands 10,000 request is significantly larger than historically we've given, or twice as large as any other current year request, maybe we should start there and make an adjustment.
Did they give any special reason why they wanted or needed 3 times the amount this year from us than they got the last time?
They gave their P and L. Says they're still working on their 2021 budget.
Yeah, budget has not been finalized, still operating off of 2021 budget.
And they will use the money to continue operating 3 facilities in Clatsop County, paying utilities, purchasing food, paying for classes, and our other services.
So their primary purpose is to help homeless people, which we all, I probably all agree that that is a significant problem in our society at this current moment. Not necessarily specifically in Gearhart, but certainly in our general community outside of Gearhart. I'm just wondering if maybe that's why they're asking for more money, because they're trying to serve more people. They haven't necessarily made that argument to us or made that point to us. I'm just conjecturing that. You know, so when we decide how much money to give any one of these organizations, how do we kind of account for their accountability? I mean, they've given us a P&L and they've given us a statement of what their need is, but to what level do we desire to, or are we able to delve into, you know, the credibility of the request, the credibility of the organization, and or their use of these funds? Being a complete novice at this, you know, for those of you who've done this in the past, how do we think about that? And what is our level of responsibility to delve into that before we disperse funds?
I'd like to extend that because obviously they extend services in other areas beyond ours, like Tillamook. And do take your dollars to help Tillamook operations.
Those do Yamhill County also.
Yeah.
And Lincoln County. And Baby Lake Reentry in Lincoln County.
I would say that in the past, the budget committee has had some discussion about trying to keep those dollars close to Gearhart. But that said, we have certainly had requests from the county food bank, which we have authorized in full, as well as South County Food Bank and the food pantry here. So I think it is something that kind of swirls around in our head for sure.
Eric, I think also to your question, we have always assumed that they are telling us the truth, and it's based on an assumption that could be erroneous, but we don't investigate, as far as, at least not since I've been on council, ever investigated a request for money to see if they're telling the truth about where they're going to use it or anything in that fashion. We just assume they are telling the truth. And then with an ask of this amount, we generally write down a lesser amount, and if we feel it warrants it at the end of allocating money to all the other requests, then we'll go back and add more to one or another request, even above what they've asked. But that's all I can tell you as far as how we have handled it in the past.
Thank you, Carrie.
So in looking at their budget, their Clatsop County expenditures are about $189,000 out of their total 606 or 700 and something thousand budget. So relatively small amount is Clatsop County, and $10,000 would be a pretty good chunk of their total Clatsop budget. I'm not arguing that they don't do good work. All of the organizations do good work, but is it $10,000 worth, or is it 5 to match what the other comparable organizations are doing?
I'd like to see them get anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000, but no more.
Okay,
I would agree on that.
could we make the change from 10,000 to 5,000 and see what that does to our,
Sure.
Done, that would leave us with 30,300.
And I'd also like to ask, why Trails End is on here when they did not submit a grant request?
That's us in communicating to you that, there was an attempt made, because we'd given them grant money in the past, and we sent out multiple notices, but didn't receive anything back.
Well, if I remember last year's budget committee, that they did not submit a grant request either, and they were given money, and I was not mad, but I was a little perplexed by that. So I just wondered why they were on here this time if they did not submit a grant.
I thought we did for their roof last year.
They did, but before that, it was either last year or the year before, when there was a gentleman who was on there that said we should just give them money, and everybody said, yeah. And my thing was that people actually take time to write a grant, and that should be rewarded. So I would like to see them not on here. And I love Trails End. It's just, they didn't submit a grant, they shouldn't.
We haven't allocated any money towards them. The only allocation money that's in the middle column, which is what they requested.
Right.
What people request is it's kind of showing.
right?
So it's kind of the request themselves. So see this how they didn't have anything, we put a 0 there.
Okay.
I don't know if this would be an apples to apples type of comparison, but I'm looking at Cedar, Clatsop Economic and Development. And they get funds from all of the cities. And last year, we did not give them because they didn't get a full application, and I think they neglected some budgetary information. But just to give you an idea, the city of Astoria and Seaside give 12,000 to Cedar, Warrenton 7,500, Cannon Beach and Deer Park 3,000. So about a quarter of what the larger cities. So where we don't know necessarily what the Helping Hands is asking of the other communities, a quarter of what we can imagine the big cities would give seems like it would be about right, just kind of based on our population and like that.
Yeah. Well, and since Cedar didn't get an allocation last year, and they did take the time to fill out an application this time, I think we ought to fund them for the 3,000 that they requested.
Well, I believe they did get funded last year, didn't
No, I
No.
don't.
didn't the gentleman from Cedar come by after the fact and ask for money and we gave it
Yes.
to him?
No, he came and asked and we turned him down because he missed the deadline.
Right, and then he made a presentation to us in January.
Yeah. Of this year to make sure that he was in the queue for our grant allocation for this year.
I
So
would
is
like to
that-
see that funded as well. Are these just consensus decisions right now?
Yeah, I think so. And then we can, let's put placeholders at least and see where the totals fall out, and then we can vote on the whole package. How does that sound?
Good.
I would just like to ask staff if you have any feedback from Chief Bowman with regard to who he's the first person to call when he's really dealing with a homeless situation and that kind of thing. Is he calling, is he looking at Helping Hands, or is it Clatsop Community Action? I have not had that conversation with him so much.
I don't know of him using those services to this point. Yeah,
The Seaside Police come into the food bank every so often to get food for the homeless. And I've made Chief Bowman aware of that. And on Tuesday, we gave out 50 bags of food for the homeless in Seaside. So I mean, there's a lot of services out there that they could request. Just let me know.
They do have an office here in Gerhart.
Brent,
Where is it?
I think it's where.
Carrie, you had something?
it has nothing to do with where the office is or anything like that. I just thought I'd make a recommendation that the airport committee, the Seaside scholarships and the Seaside Park and Recreation scholarships all get $500 as an earmark, so we can move along and see where our total ends up. These are all requests that they had previously been given.
Okay, let's, yeah,
It looks to me, though, that Seaside Scholarships is not making a request this year, if I read this right.
that is correct.
That is correct. My mistake.
And Parks and Rec requested 3,000 for two different programs, really. Three different programs.
Okay.
So,
I'd like to see them fully funded.
we could talk about the Park and Rec District, similar to Helping Hands, in that they're asking for significantly more than we have allotted them in the past. How do we feel about that?
He specifically talked about childcare
Yeah.
assistance, though.
I'm a big supporter of that. It's non-existent in the county right now.
Yeah.
I think this year it's important as we work through that whole issue to make sure that they can continue that service.
Yeah,
That was only one of the things that he said he would use the money for.
yeah, and the other was scholarships for just recreational things. Yeah, I don't, when don't we put 3,000 for Sunset Empire?
so let me just ask about that. I really support what they do, and certainly their scholarships and such may be for childcare, may be helping Gerhart residents. But the fact of the matter is, Gerhart residents are not eligible for any other Park and Rec programs. We're not in their district.
Sure you are. You just pay out of district.
Yeah, you pay,
Oh,
you
okay.
pay full freight on the fees. You don't get a discount.
Oh, I see. Okay, I apologize. I didn't realize that's how it worked. Services.
So Skylar Archibald made a pitch a couple of years ago, and I understand that he's done that periodically for quite a while. And the cost is 93 cents per thousand, which would be added on to our property tax bill
For us to become part of the district.
to become part of the district. And
Yeah.
that doesn't get free services, it gets a discount on services. So it didn't sound like a great deal to me.
It's not a great deal for us.
So we already get services at a discount.
We all want it.
No, we don't get them at a discount. We
Oh, we already
pay,
get, we get services.
we get
Okay.
services, but it's at the full price.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, the discount for paying 93 cents per thousand is, I think it's only got a 25% discount or some fairly minimal amount. Okay, so why don't we put 3,000 for Sunset Empire District, 500 for the airport?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also like to see that we fund the little yellow house. It, on line 13, it's called Seaside Hall. They do really good work.
Okay.
And they're not asking for much, and they use it very wisely.
Okay. $1,500.
If that's okay with everybody.
It's taking you with that.
Thank
They
you.
do a good job.
Thank you.
And folks have had to use their services, so they
Yeah,
owned up really well.
yeah, they're a real good organization.
Okay. And NCLC is asking for 2,000. Want to go ahead and fill that in?
Is it two or is it three? Oh, yeah, two.
Question 2.
Yeah.
The Watershed Council. How about 2,500?
I think so, because we've got them working on that bee pollinator and
Ridge Path.
and the Ridge Path project, so funding it seems like a really good idea.
Yeah. Okay. And CCA Regional Food Bank. 5,000.
Well, they didn't ask for
They didn't
anything.
I didn't
ask.
ask for anything.
Yeah, they did.
Right here, Clatsop County Regional Food.
They asked for 5. They asked for 5,000.
It wasn't in our packet.
South County.
South County has 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's blank on the paper.
Yeah.
So let's do South County for 5,000 and then confirm whether or not CCA Regional submitted anything.
CCA did, it's page 13 of the CCA.
Yep, page 13 of the request.
It's not really the 13, but it's towards the front. Very small.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh, that's right.
So they did request 5,000.
For hygiene products.
So our staff was correct.
It is worded weird.
Now, why on my notes I put Clatsop Community Action? This says name of the organization is Clatsop Community Action.
Yeah.
Clatsop Community Action Regional Food Bank.
Yeah, Regional Food Bank.
Yeah, that's what, line number 18.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes into the description organization, it digs into the food and the basic needs.
And there's nothing for the preceding years.
See, okay, look at line 21. Line 21, and then
Yes.
there's line 18. Two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are
What
different.
is- What's the deal?
The CCA Regional Food Bank is something different than Clatsop Community Action. I think.
Well, CCA is, but
Community action.
Part of it.
Yeah.
They probably have their own designated for community action, then separate for the food bank, probably.
Yeah, this is probably just a program run by CCA.
Yeah, that's what I guess.
Okay, so there. Clatsop Community Action is a good organization. Why don't we put in 5,000 as a placeholder and see where we come?
So I'd like to make a suggestion there. They have a $3.5 million budget. They're getting a lot of money from a lot of places. Perhaps we could allot them the $3,000 they've had before and take the extra $2 they're asking for and give it to our local food bank. Our South County, our 2 here that we have in the South County, right? The South County Food Bank, and we have the second one, am I right?
yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
The North Coast Food Web. So we could give North Coast Food Web and the South County Food Bank, 2 organizations that are smaller and closer to us, a little bit of the extra money, and just fund the CCA Regional Food Bank to the level that we've done before. They've got a huge budget and they must be getting a lot of money from other places too. That's just a suggestion.
Classic community action and the food bank is the same.
It is on the website for Classic Community Action. Is a nonprofit agency specializing in food, housing, energy assistance. And so I think this is the portion with the food, and CCA Regional Food Bank buys food and receives food and then sells it to our local food banks at a reduced cost. So our food banks actually do buy food from them as well as other things that they get.
So we're gonna give them money, so when we give money to another food bank, they can give them money to buy the food that we gave them money to buy in the first place.
Yeah, now you got it here.
This is making me just fidget.
Yes.
So if we got rid of the CCA or cut it down, we could give something to St. Vincent and I mean, they are right here in Gerhart giving out food.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about being local. I'd rather say it stay in the local and maybe the CCA get $2,000 and put the rest of the money in our local food banks.
I agree.
Yeah, and there's one thing with St. Vincent's de Paul, that a lot of us here in Gerhart give donations to them in the way of clothing. I do a lot of knitting because out of boredom. And, and it goes to them. I think I've done like about 18 or so mufflers over the past year. And some large enough for adults and some for children. It's a good thing.
Well, Classic Community Action is a nonprofit based in Astoria. The Clatsop County Food Bank is in Warrenton. I think they're different organizations.
And I'm giving a lot of credence to people who actually showed up here. I think that I'm giving them extra special love.
They made a point of coming and talking to us.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I've got some information here for you, Mike. Under the Clatsop CCA, Clatsop Community Action operates the CCA Regional Food Bank in Clatsop County for the Oregon Food Bank
Okay.
Network. Fights Hunger Network is a cooperative statewide coalition of 21 regional food banks in Oregon. So they are together.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we add 3,000 under CASA?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're getting pretty close, guys.
4,800 left to spend. I did not do anything with North Coast Food Web yet, and I thought I heard something for that.
Give them an extra 1,000.
Do you think-
We've given them quite a bit less in the past, but it sounds like they're really trying to grow their services and if we hope to ever have a farmer's market, we could partner with them.
Yeah. Like you're thinking.
Okay, well, the North Coast Food Web is looking to expand its facilities and staffing. It's not for food.
It's just for staffing.
Yeah, it says right here that the proposal is to upgrade our facilities and expand our staff as part of a larger campaign of $500,000.
Right, they're the people that get the food from the farm to the table. That's what their staff is used for. And they do run a kitchen.
And a training opportunity also how to cook.
Yeah,
So they think about bringing something local, more local to Gerhart, or they?
well, they're not,
Just South County.
they're
For
not,
their, I
they're
think they're
just,
asking.
they're interested in expanding their network of things like farmers markets.
Okay.
Because that's how you get it out of the farm and to the
To the
community.
table.
Yeah,
You know, of the people that, you know, presented an application, they actually have a nice grant donate, they have a nice request form. They actually have explained what their services are, what they're trying to grow. I think we should at a minimum support them to their ask. Whether or not we want to give them more is one thing, but I'm all for giving them at least the 3,000. You know, that's a page, if anybody hasn't found it, it's page 49 and 50 in our packet. And, you know, you know, their point is they provide much needed business support services from beginning and small farmers, fishers and food producers. You know, supporting food producers, restaurants and residents and other businesses owners that rely on, you know, support providing these kind of food products, and trying to get an online farmers market, food business support services. So.
Okay, so Eric,
I'm at least
are
good
you,
for the
are you
three-
saying give them what they requested or bump it up 1,000 higher?
At a minimum, I give them the 3. I don't know if anybody
Well,
else wants.
We have them at 4 now.
Yeah.
just meeting their request is fine.
I'm
Okay.
satisfied. Yeah.
So if we bumped up the CCA Regional Food Bank to 4,000, we're going to be pretty close to what we need.
And we can give the rest to St. Vincent.
Yeah, we'll be,
Like,
yeah, we'll be
you're-
$200 over. So
But we have 1,800 left with this scenario here. So if we brought CCSA Regional Food Bank up to $4,000, we'd be short 2. And
Okay.
yes, so right down here is the total amount left over, 1,800.
okay.
Chad, could you read, because I've lost track, could you just read down the amounts that was given to everybody? Because I'm lost.
Sure, so North Coast Land Conservancy, and it's up here on the screen as well.
Well.
And so
Right.
North Coast Land Conservancy is 2,000.
Right.
Cedar, 3,000. Little Yellow House, 1,500. Mechanical Watershed Council, 2,500. CCA Regional Food Bank, 2,000. CASA, 3,000. Helping Hands, 5,000. St. Vincent de Paul, 3,000. Seaside Municipal Airport, 500. North Coast Food Web, 3,000. Sunset Empire Park and Rec, 3,000. And the South County Food Bank, 5,000. Which is at 33,500 total, 1,800 left. to pay.
Okay, how about if we add 1,800 to CCA Regional Food Bank and then we're done? So 3,800 for CCA.
So do we not?
No,
get
no,
any-
no, no, no. CCA Regional. Yep, 18 or 3,800.
But let me ask this question. So we have a reserve fund of $12,000. We're at a time in our society where we know that there are people without food and shelter right now because of the aftermath of the pandemic that we're still going through. Maybe now is the time to at least use a little bit of that money towards agencies that are supporting food and housing for people. Not necessarily all of that 12,000, but maybe this is the year that we use up 25% of that $12,000. We add another, close to, frankly, this 40,000 that's in column I. Just as a suggestion, supporting the South County Food Bank, which is right here, and St. Vincent de Paul, which is right here. And we could give a couple extra thousand to those that are supporting the people that are really hurting right now.
Go ahead. Sure.
So do we not give anything to the harbor, or
They didn't
They
apply.
didn't apply.
does that mean we don't give them anything, or? Because we have,
Budget committee's choice.
we have in the
There's
past.
an application process and they usually come and present.
Multiple times, just, that's how, yeah, we made sure that.
Okay.
And Sharon, several years ago, the council decided that if we did not get an application with a P&L, that we weren't going to donate to that organization.
Our requirements are fairly minimal, and if they don't take the time to submit a one-page application and their financials, which they should have readily available already, it doesn't speak too highly of the organization's organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they filled out an application, they would be paid.
There is an opportunity also in the mayor's, what's called that discretionary funds.
Yeah, if they came back and said, oh gee, sorry, something came up and we couldn't make it, then that's up to the mayor to use her discretion to fund.
Maybe that's where the 25% that Eric is suggesting should go.
So mayor's discretion.
Yeah, like 3,000-ish.
Well, or maybe 10,000.
They don't have to spend it.
Right.
You can appropriate it.
Appropriate all of it.
But sorry.
Appropriate all of it, not spend it. Just in case spend those items. For the futures.
Is that what everybody's okay with?
Yep. Well, they're trying to make it all of it, or 10 grand or something like that.
Well, I was just wondering because I would ask Brent if he wants a motion to accept. I can't see anybody. I mean, you guys are nothing in the screen for me, but little munchkins of paper.
Well, we can't see you either.
Oh, that's because the only way I could get on board is to mute my video.
Oh. So can you see the screen, Carrie, or do you want to read through the totals again?
Oh, no, I can see the screen just fine. It's just you know, you're about an inch by an inch and 3/4 on my screen for the, so it's very hard for me to see, but if everyone just, I mean, if you want to make a motion, I'll make a motion. I mean, that's what I was
Sure.
trying to get at is
Okay, I would entertain a motion, sure.
I move that we accept these numbers as printed on the screen right now for the allocation of the state revenue sharing fund.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I just want to clarify,
The bottom line number then is
38.3.
38,3.
Yep.
And so that still leaves about 11,000 in unappropriated, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 50,000. Yeah, 12,000 basically, yeah.
So just carry over to next
Yeah,
year's
just
budget.
carry over to the next year and, yeah,
Having all the revenue.
That makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense.
so to clarify line 11, that's now, we've created a discretionary fund in case somebody comes later to ask for a donation. There would be some money set aside that we could abide by that.
Yes.
Let's go to a mayor's fund then.
We're gonna change the name,
Yeah, let's go to the. Yeah,
discretionary.
discretionary fund.
Discretionary fund.
Or grant discretionary fund. Maybe then not just discretionary fund. People might perceive the discretionary fund to mean that it could be applied to anything.
Right.
Because what you're talking about is grant
Grant.
discretionary fund.
Yeah, yeah, mayor's discretionary grant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have motion moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
All
opposed?
you that are excusing yourself because you have a conflict of interest cannot be voting on this.
Oh,
Sorry.
Ah, thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, noting.
Yeah.
They're not voting.
Okay,
So
And technically,
I'm gonna vote, but I do give money to the North Coast Land Conservancy, but I don't think that's a conflict.
personally,
I personally give them money, yeah.
yeah. that's
Oh,
no-
we personally give them money too,
Yeah,
on a
that's,
monthly basis.
that's no.
Yeah, that's, yeah, you, they don't give money to you. That's where the conflict would come.
Yeah, I think the conflict would come if you were a
Yeah,
beneficiary
we give
of
them,
those monies.
we give them money on a monthly basis, and we have for years.
So in reality, I don't think that any of you need to step aside, and excuse yourself.
you don't think so?
No, even if you volunteer with it, you're not benefiting from it.
Okay.
Unless you're taking money from one of these sources
Yes.
as a beneficiary, then
Or if they're a board member. If they're,
Yeah.
if they're a controlling role, then
That's a good
they
point.
have to abstain.
Yeah,
I'm
a board,
excused.
board member would have a split fiduciary duty. So yeah, that would be an issue.
I recuse
I'm
myself.
gonna read a recuse. All right, we've got a motion to approve by Carrie, a second by Eric.
And everybody not recused, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, it passes again. Okay, so we're done with the state funds.
Mr. Chairman, I take a quick restroom break.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that. Yeah, we've been at it for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So how about taking a 5-minute break? Is that long enough?
sure.
Okay, let's have a short 5-minute recess.
Oh, sorry.
So
Done this.
Chad, are you gonna leave the mic on or what?
No, I can mute it for now.
You can, or you, okay.
I can't mute you, but I can mute us.
Well, I just, I had a question for Justine I was gonna ask.
Was it with regard to a meeting topic, or was it a private Justine question?
It was the staff report under recommended motion,
Yes.
you know, where it says a motion to approve budget or confirm the need for another budget meeting. The next paragraph down, is our budget really $23,496,860.33?
It is because it includes the 14, the general obligation bond, the new fund, and it includes the debt service payments for that fund. So if you take those out, it would be more normal, like what you're used to seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but we are anticipating that bond to pass, which means we will get the bond proceeds.
Right.
So Justine, I have a question as well, and I always hesitate to ask.
Maybe we better wait until the meeting reconvenes before we ask and answer questions, because everybody would be interested.
Maybe not this question.
That was juicy. I don't remember.
This question is really boring.
Yeah, I have a bottle of Chardonnay in the refrigerator waiting to be popped out. I think we're getting pretty close here.
We are.
Yeah.
You did a lot of work on this. Miss Justine.
It's
You sure
unbelievable.
did.
Yeah,
You deserve a pay raise.
That's a line.
it's a line I have.
It's 2 line items.
2 items.
I got fooled.
Tried to hide myself.
Sneaky.
I mean, this is the most intensive budget committee mean, in my whole years.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What you do before, just go bypass it and go?
No, no, but it was,
Yeah.
it was, there were 500 here
Mhm.
from Cuban just appointed, and wanted to work on it, be part of it. And then the council, all the councilors.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we were down by elementary, middle school, high school. A lot of times, that there was a second meeting.
Oh, really?
But it was only, it would have been maybe 4 or 5 weeks later.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it wasn't ever the next night.
It's the
Yeah.
stuff that churns and
Yeah.
a certain amount, and then if you want to buy more.
You can buy
buy
supplemental,
more.
I think it's 25,000. But yes. And then they have a supplemental plan that you can sign up for and individually have it taken out of your paycheck each month.
If you want more.
And you can, it only, ours is term and it only covers yourself, the employee. And you can buy supplemental to cover family members too. Yeah, 25,000. And so is the accidental life insurance.
Are we all back?
We are.
Okay, then let's get a move on. So now we go through the full budget. We have questions or comments?
Sounds good, Counselor.
Okay. I had a question on page 1 on the Gerhart Rural Fire Protection District. So the current budget is 224. We just received the 224, so there was no 3% increase year over year.
There should be a 3% increase on that, yes.
Okay, so it should be about 230,000.
230,720.
Okay. So that'll be updated.
Yes, and then just I'll make sure that I get this in here.
Yeah, and Justine, I was so happy to see you report that the other night.
So that'll be an addition of 6,720 we'll need to add to another line. We can go, as we go through the budget, we can use those as hold aside reserve. So we're okay for you? 237.20 minus 224.
Brent, were you just asking about page 1, line 22?
Page 1. I already flipped it. Yeah, line 22, page 1. Yes,
Can I ask a question on page 1?
sure.
Yes.
I was just curious about line 19, why the 3 columns on the left are so different from each other and then different again in the proposed this year. I know that Justine had talked about these conflagration mobilization things, but
Yeah, they're kind of hard to gauge how much they will be depending upon how awful the fire season is.
oh,
And
I get it.
oftentimes
Oh.
it happens in California or
Right.
Southern Oregon.
Right. And the columns on the left are what was actually spent.
Yeah, and that was in overtime, I believe.
Was where the expenditure
is, I'm
not sure where the.
So yeah, essentially, we're never too sure what kind of fire season we're going to have.
Okay,
And so some of these past numbers are from different types of fire seasons. And actually, it's not perfectly in relation because, well, yeah, no, that's what we had received in those years.
yeah. So how do we even come up with this number then for this year?
And Counselor Smith had asked us, and this last year, we reorganized and added the conflag mobilization. It was in there, but they were not putting the revenue always there. They were distributing it out sometimes to miscellaneous or fines and forfeitures. They didn't tie it 1-to-1 like we're doing now. We had to go back and do a little bit of historical research too, because they didn't use those line items quite historically accurate.
Okay,
And now you're consulting the Farmer's Almanac to see why it's going to be.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a rather exacting number.
it was just a roundup.
It's an exacting number because what happens is if you go to the section in the fire department, what happens is that the conflag line on page, it's on page 8, line 7 is 120,000. But what we do is we run that through a payroll calculator. So then they have to pay PERS, workers' comp,
Okay.
unemployment. So it creates, you can't just say, oh, well, you say 184,000, but it's only 120,000 that it's costing us. Well, it's the 120,000 plus the 40,000 down below. on line 33, plus all the payroll associated costs. We looked back the last 2 years, and last year it was 200,000. This year it's like over 100,000. We just couldn't gauge. I mean, it's so out there.
Right, but those are that's how you built up that number on line 19 on page 1, was from those other elements and like you said, payroll costs and that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And I have a question. It's kind of it's not specific to this budget, but it might affect it. So the recent interest rate hike, how will that affect the city of Garrett because of how much money we're borrowing and how much money that we have in the bank? Will that affect
It
us
will
a lot?
affect us not in the sense of any current obligations we have because those interest rates are locked in.
Right,
But it will significantly, which we've already seen, impact us in the sense where it's not paying out well to have your money in the bank.
mm-hmm.
And so our revenues will drop significantly in the interest funds.
So I thought if they raised the interest rates, that if we had money in the bank, we'd get a hike.
Oh, interest rates in our savings account?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty
Yeah.
minimal.
Okay.
Yeah, for checking and savings accounts that pay interest, yeah, those should bump up.
Okay,
But it's gonna hurt us on the new bond pricing,
all right.
which may impact the amount of principal that we can get out of the bond sale.
All right, thanks.
Anything on page 2 of the budget? Question wise? I've got a question on page 3 on legal fees. I heard Peter talking at some point of suggesting that the city go to essentially a flat salaried legal cost instead of billing for actual hours. Does that ring a bell with anybody?
We hadn't talked to staff about that.
He had not. Oh.
He hasn't talked to me either.
Okay. Maybe it would get a good idea to have a chat to see if that was just idle chatter or if that was a serious. He had mentioned it because he was concerned that the city was afraid to seek his advice on a timely basis, which would ultimately cost him more time to defend us. Does that make sense? So it may be better to go to a flat structure. And I don't know what that amount would be, but it would certainly have an impact on the budget.
I think that the way that we run our legal fees now is very efficient. We use what we need, and we're not paying as we don't. And I've never had any problem with getting a hold of Peter in regards to specific events. The amount here, 37.5, we're looking forward to doing some pretty interesting things. So we anticipate there may be some legal fees in addition to that. So I'm pretty satisfied that this would be enough to cover it, and we can watch it over the next year and see if there is any indication that maybe go to a different model.
Okay.
For now, I'm pretty good at. I think that we're going to be able to do it within this budget, and it's in a couple of other little places as well for some of the other funds.
Can you expand on kind of you're doing interesting things that might have caused you to increase the budget amount for that?
The vote for the fire police station is my biggest concern, and after that, I don't have any major concerns.
Well, the land swap.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Seems to have created some controversy.
Yes,
Yeah,
to interpret.
Usually we don't spend anywhere near what we budget, but we're always prepared.
Okay. Let's let it ride as is and keep it in the back of our minds for future.
I had a question on 22, just so that the audit fees are, you're doubling basically of what was adopted previously and doubling what was done before. Is that because of increased fees that we're paying?
So our previous auditor mid-audit was elderly and passed away. And I believe he was the auditor for
20+ years.
at least. And so he maybe had not been keeping up on the exact current rate of auditors. And so the city had to select a new auditor, which this was before me, but I came right in the middle of it. So they have a more competitive rate for municipalities and are doing more extensive auditing that maybe we should have been having done. So it is more expensive.
And I'd just like to add in, I've dealt with a lot of audit firms and this is still a bargain, even at this higher amount.
They seem well worth the expense. for
Yeah.
sure.
So the historical reference is just hard to gauge.
Sure.
Because we haven't multiple years.
I will say, I completely enjoy working with them. They're tough. So they're doing their job.
Makes sense. And you already explained that 24 was because all
Yes.
departments except for water, which is a difference in the county valued it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Sharon Clough called me about that one today, and we have had some increase. I wanna say it was like 13% is what they're estimating our increase will be for insurance. And it was distributed out awkwardly, so we proportioned it out. And so really the general fund is the majority of the cost. Because we have all the departments and a lot of the expensive vehicles in there, but there is some in water too.
I had a question on 32. And you did a great job explaining it both in the narrative and you added a few more things. So, and is this something, obviously, you've already kind of priced out, or just basically an estimate based on where you want to go?
We've just tried to look at some different models, and that's kind of, we don't want to max that price range because you keep adding modules, and we don't want to price ourselves out of software.
Yeah.
And finding the right combination of exactly what we need. We are not a big municipality and we don't need intense, complicated, but it would be nice to do some integration.
Yeah.
So we'll have some setup costs. We might have some actual technology costs like computers and hardware type of things. So that was our best guess, just on talking to a couple of different software companies that were recommended.
By the auditor.
Yeah, and
The auditor recommended one of them, so there's multiple other towns that we were working with. And really, this is to help bring the financial portion to where the other departments will go directly into that, saving us a lot of time and energy and being able to account for everything a little bit better.
But unfortunately, sales representatives always make everything seem really easy,
Mhm.
and it can't be a complicated integration or it will not be usable, so.
Will you have to like preload data and stuff like that?
Yeah, it'll
Like,
be a full,
Potentially.
Will we need staff to do that?
potentially.
So that's not in there.
Well, but if other departments are inputting data, then potentially it could create capacity for you.
yeah,
That could be used to help
Yes,
integrate this
Facilitate,
with
yes.
other people.
So I'm talking about just to get it
Yeah, yeah.
They're pretty, I mean, again, we're speaking to salespeople, they seem pretty confident that with, you know, data files and .txt files and Excel files, that they should be able to extract. The water system's the scariest. Just because there is a lot of historical data with meters and reads and, you know, we don't really want to jeopardize losing all of the history that we have in there. So we move forward cautiously.
Usually software vendors have a integration team that do conversions of your old data into the new format so it can be imported into the new software, and hopefully they have people that can do that. And yeah, even if it costs more money, if you're saving data entry, you know, at 2 or 3 points on 2 or 3 different systems, it's going to save money in the long run and be more accurate as well.
I would say that it just in my personal comment would be, if we're spending over $35,000 a year in software, that's too much. I just don't think we should go over that. You know, I mean, I think we have to finally set a cap of where we think, and that's just too much money for the size we are. Because what we do works, it just doesn't work as effectively as it could.
Labor intensive, I guess is
Yeah.
the word, but
Right.
we'll be getting into this process, learning more, and then we'll report more to the council as it comes close. But we think this will get us pretty far. And then we'll be able to administrate this with some in-house. And if we need some help with it, we've got some part-time labor and things like that, that we may be able to use that for temp labor as well.
So we should look to this to become an annual cost? It's
I
not
think
like a
initially,
purchase.
I think, no. I think that you would not want to have any software. The QuickBooks that we have is a stationary program, so it's with the computer, which limits where you can work on it, because you don't really want to tack that around because it has everybody's name and social security number and date of birth. So if you have that on a laptop and you're packing at home and your house gets broken into, you've just released everybody's information. Most of them are web-based, so that the information is saved in a secure location, so you can go anywhere and work on it. So I think the 35,000 does include some hardware costs, because we will probably have to get some upgraded hardware in order to support it. But I think that, you know, we're probably looking at in the 20,000s for an annual support. Depending on
cloud, cloud-based.
And depending on how many modulars we choose to go.
That sounds great.
Not jumping ahead, but there's a technology and software line item on page 11 for the municipal court. Is that kind of a similar?
We're hoping to put it in part of ours, because there are modulars, but it might not be, it might be independent.
Okay.
She really wants something as soon as possible. Ours might not be an implementation until like February, January, beginning of the year, or maybe we might start in May, or probably more like March, in order to transition, have everything paid for, all the stuff rolled over so we can start in July 1. She wants to start hers right away.
So she wants to get going with that.
She wants to get something right away. It's very hard and cumbersome, and people call, and it's confidential, so we can't look at anything to help them how much they owe. But with more integrated softwares, we can do that. So we're trying to collaborate together, but her move would be a lot faster than ours.
So would she be, so let's say we're using Xerox as the company. Somehow you guys make that decision. Is she gonna just buy her module? And then you guys are gonna buy your modules later? Because we don't want her going off and buying this
No.
if you guys decide that.
Right.
That's not our intention at all.
Okay.
But
We
the
need to
court
work there.
might not be a functional module or the one we choose.
So we
She
may
might
have to make some.
have a Xerox one and she might have to. There's no perfect software.
Okay.
But our goal is to do it a lot better and make it work more together.
Yes, we're trying.
That's our goal.
Okay, so you'll shop for software and let's get on with the budget. Are we up to page 4, page 5? Any questions? I had another question on page 6 on the relief police placeholder. And I understand the reason why the chief wants to have a placeholder, but it seems $1 is kind of an odd placeholder.
So according to what I've been told is that if you do not have at least $1 placeholder, then you should be looking at eliminating it from the budget. And so the $1, because we don't want to really appropriate a lot of money there because we don't anticipate any usage there. It's only just a simple, if we need to transfer money from somewhere else within the general fund, $1 gives us the opportunity to do that.
It could
Okay.
even come from overtime pay.
It could come from non-departmental, it could come from state revenue share celebrations. It could come from anywhere in the general fund.
Okay,
I agree, it seems awkward, but it also seems inappropriate to maybe inflate that when we know we're not necessarily going to use it.
I was just thinking, since we've had a vacancy for so long and I hate to use the term taking advantage of our 2 police officers, but if we're having to hire Clatsop County Sheriff's deputies or Seaside Police for coverage, then why wouldn't we put a real number in there that we could tap to pay for that?
I think because overall it inflates the appropriations when we don't really need it there. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
And currently, we have mutual aid agreements already to be covered in the middle, while we're short, and the other departments know, and they've helped us out occasionally, and there's no cost for that. If in 3 years we have a 0 in there, really the line should disappear. We put $1 in there, we can keep the line and then use it again in the future. But right now, Chief Bowman does not have any plans to use the relief police officer, but he would like to keep that line on the budget. So that's the $1 for it.
Okay,
I think it should be there. I wish we had a relief officer or 2.
I have a question on line 4, and this may be more personnel type thing, but so the overtime is for the non-exempt employees, right? Exempt employees wouldn't have that.
Steve Gerhart does not have non-exempt employees,
Okay, so, yeah, correct,
except Chad.
except for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't make any overtime, but all the other department heads and employees do.
Okay.
Apparently they had a lawsuit many years ago and settled that they are not exempt.
We just did a new personnel manual last year and we had long discussions
Sure,
about that.
yeah, and I'm obviously not being here, so we're just trying to clarify who is eligible for
Right.
that line item.
right. That-
All 3 police officers are eligible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Chad.
No.
It's
I mean, no.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, but all of the police officers are, yes.
Okay. Let's go on. Anything else on page 6? Page 7? Eight. 9. Page 9, I noticed that the total fire expenditure budget went up by about $120,000. Is that?
It's the conflag. It was budgeted, yeah, it was budgeted, last year at 40,000, it's 120,000. We didn't have 40,000 in line 33, that we now have 40,000 in there.
Okay, so that explains the significant bump.
The intern program doubled.
Benefits.
Yeah, but that's fairly minor. I'm trying to make up the 120,000.
It's line 7 from the previous page, Brent, and line 33 on page 9.
Yeah,
And those amounts will only be spent if we receive the revenue. So there will be no expense paid out without the revenue.
okay, I got it. All right, page,
And to point out, those two lines add up to $160,000. If you take 160,000 away from the 746, you've got even less than your 627 from last year.
Say that again?
Well, Brent was noticing that the budget is 120,000 more, but that 120,000 comes from both line 7 and line 33, which is $160,000. If you take So if you take away that increase of 160, you're now down to 580, which is 40,000 less than last year for all the other line items.
Well, it's only increased 120.
No, that's the total. 120 is the total, and then also the 40 down below, and then it's also spread out between the other benefits, PERS, and that sort of thing as well.
Right.
So,
Also reduced grants restricted, I mean.
yeah, and we reduced a few other things too. It's not apples for apples. Fire chief salary is not as high as last year because we're not paying that. So there's some offset, but we're comfortable that the numbers equal for that program.
okay,
Yeah, but the only point I was making was we're spending even less. When you take away these two conflag line items, they together add up to 160.
right.
And
So
we're
there's
over
the,
by
yeah,
120, so we're actually 40,000 under from last year.
yeah, that's a good point, Eric.
It's a good guess. You know,
Yeah.
we'll come under, we could go over, we'll make adjustments at that
But
point.
it is certainly equivalent.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, page 10.
I have a question on line 2. So at my mayor's coffee, I don't think I've followed this up with you, Chad. Someone asked for a street light to be put in on a pole down there around Brent, it's not your street, it's the next one to the second subdivision.
Meadow.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Meadows.
so is this where that
Meadow.
would come in, or how do we go about doing that? There's about 3 poles with no lights.
That's probably state streets.
With streetlights, they don't charge us for the installation, they charge us for the monthly fee. So as we add streetlights, the monthly fee will go up.
And that's this,
That would be the streetlights, the fund for 500, or excuse me, 50,000 on line 2.
Yeah.
Correct.
okay, so it bounces around a lot.
Yeah.
Like, do we have actual numbers on that?
Yeah, that's 60,000. The 41,000 is an actual number, the 21,000 is an actual number. And I think to date,
Yesterday's stuff.
So, I mean, that.
Invoices.
And we pay monthly,
We pay monthly, yeah, they bill us.
based on the number that we have.
Yes.
So how much for streetlights per month?
So I can't answer that right now.
Yeah, we would have to pull the bill.
Do they maintain them?
Yes,
They change the lights and everything, and then, yeah, when they go down.
and no matter what type of light we put in, it's the old time, so the impression light or the LED light, the price is the same, even though we're saving electricity. So, it's just the way that they work.
Can somebody request to remove the street? I've had that.
I know, yeah.
I've had that, and then what I did is I asked them to just go talk to their neighbors, and then that went away.
And then you tell them to take it away.
If, maybe, I mean, I would go through, I've never had to really deal with that, other than the request, and once that person talked to the neighbors, they were. Said, we are in non-departmental.
Street shade. It's amazing when they put those.
Alright, so. 12. Right there.
Okay, so to date, we've paid 16,744.
And we're 10 months into the fiscal year. Okay,
No problem. So I have a question on line 9. What's this land purchase for $2,000?
We have an option to buy a piece of property, if we have an option to buy a piece of property, that money is for it, and we have been leasing the Pacific Power lot next to us here, where our trailer has been,
Yes.
and we will have an opportunity to buy that. Talk to Pacific Power, that's approximately, what the cost of that property. But we haven't entered into negotiations yet.
Thank you.
The old substation used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's been almost since.
so is that contaminated? Has it been
It's been cleared.
cleared? Okay, great.
Yeah, BB&L takes pretty good care of it.
Okay. All right, so we're done with streetlights?
Yeah.
Anything else on page 10, page 11? How about page 12? Justine did such a good job of explaining everything.
Really good.
Uh, 12, 13, 14.
13, I got a question on parks maintenance and repair.
Okay.
Have we actually priced out like garbage and improvements?
No, pretty.
Our low hanging fruit?
Yeah, no, they're probably about $1,000 a piece, depending on which one we choose. The solar panel ones are more like $500 a piece.
Maybe
So,
we could get a grant, you know.
so yeah, there's opportunity for grant this potentially as well. But this is also signifies the American Rescue Act monies. So those are budgeted in the park for infrastructure.
It's not like the place we play.
That's, yeah, we're all gonna be done with that.
You don't know about it.
But anything else we wanted to do there?
And then line, some ADA parking will be coming out of that, or parks repair, or any enhancements we do for park. Then we have a parks master plan. We have some things that we need to accomplish, and so we'll start doing. Just take a little pressure off Justine, just so you know, she is the treasurer and she does account for things, and she's very good at that. I'm the operations guy, so together, we're going to answer your question.
I had a question on 14 for 3, just that materials and services. significant jump from prior. So were there other things grouped in there or what, how do you account for that?
Is that technology, 35,000 technology, I think was material. So it's-
Under administrative,
Yeah. Legal fees jumped, the audit jumped, insurance jumped, and
reallocation.
the technology software jumped.
Right, okay, thank you, sorry. It's the summary.
We're flipping pages.
Okay. Is everybody on 15 or farther?
Oh, I'm sorry.
16. Seventeen, 18. Yeah, that bond interest is just fascinating.
The notice on page 17 that the 2015 city series bond has only through 2025 will be our last payment.
Yeah.
So that will reduce about 60 cents approximately per thousand. All right.
19. Page 20. Twenty-one.
Uh,
22.
Well, on 21, just a question on the public work director that was there. So there's like a $20,000 difference in there. Is that
Yeah, potentially that is true. So what we've been doing is some salary investigations. We've got the salary standard that Manzanita did a big report, but the biggest thing is I have a 23-year employee there that is in charge of a major department within here. And I can't see, I mean, I think that I really truly believe we've been underpaying that position for too long. And he's responsible for just as many employees, if not, than the other departments. And it's something that we use every day.
So if you look at page 35, just as a reference, we have 3 supervisors that are really equivalent in responsibility. We have the public works director, we have the fire chief, and we have the police chief. All of them have similar responsibilities, and without the adjustment in the salary schedule, he would be down in the 70,000 range. So after kind of working through the salary schedules and looking at job responsibilities and weighting where the placement should be in an equitable sense, there was an adjustment made there.
okay? And the salary schedule, of course, when you get to the end, then that person would be maxed out.
Done, correct.
And we're going through their 7 steps.
But this change would be done within 1 year, though, right?
Correct, and it includes a COLA increase as well that would happen during the January period of time. Doesn't it? No, because we were looking at 15. And the COLA is in January. So was it? Oh, yes, excuse me, but that includes COLA.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does he know about this yet?
I've been in discussions with him, we've done a review, we've done some goal setting. And so, yeah, he is aware of it, he brought it up as well. So upon our studies and working together, we worked this out. There's been no guarantees made.
Given the trouble that adjoining cities are having hiring senior staff,
Yes.
anything we can do to retain
We have.
our great employees is fantastic. Uh, Anybody have another question or comment? Just holler out your page number and line item.
So Chad, page 22, line item 34, any further information on that?
Chemical water analysis is just us, this has to do with all of the work and information that we have to send to the state. We employ a water modeler to do that, and that is the fee for them to take all the data, put it into a format that can be put into a report, and then we have to report to the state every year. And the fees for that are included in that. And over the years, it's been consistent.
So that's changed from the first 2 years actuals.
Correct, because we had it played, we were taking it out of some other places as well, or that didn't just quite fit it. So one of the things that Justine keyed in on is apples for apples. Let's put that analysis into the analysis line. So it's common that we spend that amount every year.
So you're saying it's just been in other line items?
It's been over, yeah, it's over budgeted there. It was just an inconsistency of charging, so the historical data is not, yes, that's the right statement, I'm sure. I'm sorry.
Moving forward, we'll get more accurate every year.
Yeah. Oh, you guys have made tremendous progress in a short amount of time. I'm impressed. Okay, next comment. I think I've run out of comments, so anybody else have anything?
The allotment program, we have projects in mind for that.
Which is
The grant. The 25. Which one?
What page?
And is that the small city allotment program? Yeah, actually, we've been approved through ODOT to do Pacific Way sidewalk from the
well, from
street.
the park almost to just past Woodland. And so we wrote at the last minute a grant and received it. So we have 2 years to spend that money on that project. Yeah, and the reason that we chose that sidewalk is because it does need some work, and it's also the one that's traveled by the most people in Deer Heart. So, and it was for repair, it wasn't for new.
Oh, it's just repair?
Yeah. So, you know, it's to take old sidewalk and to make it better. And ADA upgrades are a big part of that, and that's the reason, one of the reasons we got the grant is because there's not a lot of ADA going on that, so we will also be adding some of that, better slopes, indicators, flood indicators, little yellow bubbles, those sorts of stuff.
Yes.
So once you get to Woodland, you just walk on the side of the road.
You use the sidewalk that's there now.
Sidewalk, yeah.
There's a sidewalk there now, so we just wouldn't replace beyond that. But it's actually in spots and pieces, and it's going to be replacing some of the sidewalk we're going to keep, such as what's in front of the C1 zone and all that, and some of the spots need repair. And so we put that together in a package.
Do you have like a visual of that?
Yeah, I do have a map that I can send you. to show you what the project was. It was the one that we used for the application process.
I think you should.
We'll be talking more about it here soon.
Can I ask about page 25, line 13? And I see that that's built from page 26, kind of line 19 and the lines above it. So the materials, and so on page 26, in fact, line 14, materials and services, that's a large number.
So the small allotment grant, that $100,000, we allocated in expenditures. So we put some of the money in material and services and some of it in contracted services. So it inflated the materials and services in the expenditures, but it's made up in the revenues for the small allotment grant.
Oh, I see. So you had to put it somewhere, so you allotted it to those.
Yeah, we're estimating that those are the two areas that we will likely spend it on: concrete and surveying and engineering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was page 26, 27. Page 28. '29. '30. '31. '32. '33. And now we're into road district. 34. And back into salaries, page 35. And supporting documents.
I'd just like a little clarification on the salaries page, on 35. So at the very top, for example, not to pick on anybody in the room, but it's just, so city administrator, you've got a number 99 something. And when you look down at salary schedules, on the right-hand column, city administrator 99. And when you go to chief of police on the upper left, 90,000. And then you go down on salary schedules, chief of police, 90,000, but fire chief was different. Fire chief was 81.7 at the upper left, but fire chief on the right-hand column is 106. So I was trying to match those two columns up. And so some employees, the number matches, but others like that, the fire chief was different.
So the only people that it matches are people who have maxed out on the salary schedule. Because once you max out on the salary schedule, you're only ever on that step, you don't move. But the member handbook says that you move on your anniversary date. So nobody starts on July 1 practically. They all start at all different times of the year. So he will start out at step 1 on July 1, he will be 79,000. And then in December, when he was hired, he will move to step 2. So his salary is a combination of step 1 and 2 based on his anniversary date.
Okay, that's why those are different in those columns.
He's a new fire chief.
Yes, and so it is very complicated. I have broken them down by month so I can track them because they break.
Oh, I see. The left-hand side is where a person starts and the right-hand side is where they finish.
Correct, so
Okay.
the contract says that you move over a step on your anniversary date, but your
Oh.
anniversary date is all different times, so July 1,
Okay,
this is your salary schedule amount, but then on your anniversary date, you step over on the salary.
okay. Now I see how these things work. Thanks.
Yeah, it's boggling, I agree. You wanna match the numbers, I'm very sympathetic.
That's okay. Well, I get it now.
I thought that was an excellent explanation, however. I think we should just hire people on July.
Me too.
No, if you want any more challenges trying to find people. I
Yeah,
know it's January, but you wait 7 months?
You're volunteering until July first.
Might be an hourly employee for a month.
There we go.
We only need to make one more change if we're finished with this. We actually have $6,720 we need to spend because of the increase in, where was that? Revenue. Revenue. The Rural Fire Protection District.
It might be too easier just to keep all the numbers right if we just subtract it from line 23.
That would be easiest.
So it would be a plus to line 22 and a minus to line 23.
Page,
Page 1.
Page 1.
That way then that total numbers still stay the same and we really have no idea with miscellaneous income. I will tell you right off that 88,000 on page 23 was the COVID grant that we will not get. So it's a totally incorrect, I mean, it's a misleading number because that's where the grant went for the non-development last year for the business grants. So I feel very comfortable if we reduced it.
Well, we wouldn't have to reduce it anything if we just kept everything the same.
Right, plus this one, minus this one,
Oh, gotcha.
so that we have the correct number in there.
So that would make line 23, we would reduce that to 38,280.
What page?
Page 1, line 23. We're going to reduce line 23 and increase line 22. So in line 22, we would have 230,720. Because that is the correct 3% increase that I missed. And then under miscellaneous, just to make up for that increase in revenue and not have to change the rest of the expenses, we're gonna bring miscellaneous down by 6,720 to equal 38,280.
And as crazy as that sounds, it is very helpful when you start doing things like that, because then when you look at it next year, it makes logical sense for a historical reference.
yeah. Okay. And so was that it for adjustments?
Yes.
Are we ready to adopt the budget?
I think we have to ask for public comment
Correct.
next.
And the only public that I have here is RJ Marks. And I bet you he's got a recorder.
If he's smart, he's got a recorder going.
So I guess. Yeah.
So no public comment.
Yeah, we don't have any hands raised or phone ins or,
Who in their
Okay.
right mind would be waiting 3 hours and 15 minutes to make a public comment.
I-
I can think of a few people that I'm surprised aren't here.
Well,
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Hey. So do I hear a motion to adopt the budget as amended?
Wait, first you have to announce the next meeting. Or not, I guess.
Oh, let me go back to my agenda, which got buried in the mountain of paperwork.
Well, I'll make a motion that we not have a budget meeting tomorrow.
I'll second that.
I'll third it. I'll fourth that.
you know, if we pass this budget, we don't have a meeting, but all we have to do is announce that if we need one and we don't pass it, we'll have one tomorrow night. We don't need a motion or anything.
Right.
Okay.
But Brent, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 22-23 budget as amended on May 5th.
Okay, we have a motion. Who would like to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Rita.
And I would just like to read the motion so that we can have it. That's one of the requirements of the budget committee. So the motion would read, the Gearhart Budget Committee approves the proposed 2022-23 budget in the amount of $23,496,860.33, which includes a permanent tax rate limit levy of 1.0053 per thousand of assessed value, general obligation debt service, as well as approve the Gearhart Road District proposed 2022-2023 budget in the amount of $227,406.39 with a permanent tax rate limit levy 0.0602 cents per thousand of assessed value. Just so we have it on the record.
Okay. It is on the record. So we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor of passing the amended budget, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Any opposed? The budget is adopted. Congratulations, one and
Yay.
all.
Thank you all very much for your volunteers.
And we did it in one night in 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Hmm.
All right. Thank you very much, Brent, Eric, online.
Oh, my God. Meeting.
Yes,
Goodbye.
thank you. Oh, Kurt
Motion to adjourn.
Penrod. I needed to ask you, Portland Housing Center.
Yes.
I was a founding board member of the Portland Housing Center and hired Peg Malloy in 1991.
Oh, wow, I know Peg very well. Yeah.
It's a very, very small world.
Yeah, so I like her. She's quite an eclectic person with a strong passion for housing.
Oh, she does. Absolutely. We'll have to have coffee one of these days.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
We're fine. Thanks for your help. Appreciate you coming in. What the heck were you into, man?
Thanks for coming.
Good night, you guys, thank you.